my starter. Oh well. All the same. We'll put that in the background so no one has to look at it. My OBS seems unhappy. That's the plight of the developer. You always like changing things and breaking stuff. And then, at least in your own world, would never do that in a production environment. Or would you? It's like I have to set up my own continuous integration development just for my configuration files. My Twitch start program stopped working for some reason, and I have to figure out why. It's one of the things that allows me to do this. If I didn't have some of these automations, I could never do this, because in fact it took me so long to get all my systems set up. If I had to like set up and tweak my audio every day and all of that, there's no way I could do this. So if you're thinking about doing this kind of thing, you really have to have all of the logistics of how you're going to stream completely taken care of, in terms of like not even messing with anything. I don't even reboot this machine. In fact, how long have I been up? Yeah, 49 days. Let's see if I can keep this computer running the entire beginner boost. Probably not. Probably have a power outage in the middle of that somewhere. But yeah, that keeping things running is a big deal. What are you guys talking about up there? What y'all talking about? Where's Rob? I'm here. We start at 10 after the hour, by the way, but that gives me at least 10 minutes to screw around and make up for broken things. edX HTML5 course, was unaware of it. Somebody check it out. I guess I should check it out and see if it's any good. W3C makes me a little worried since they didn't invent HTML5. HTML5 was invented by the What working group, and because W3C was sitting on their butt and they weren't getting anything done, so I'm a little leery of them producing an educational resource. But I imagine it has a lot to do with semantic HTML and stuff. We'll have to have a look at that, though. Please, some people evaluate that. If you want to compare it to something, compare it to the What WG, source, the actual specification, which is very instructive. It's got a lot of examples. That is the best place to go to learn HTML, because it's literally the manual, RTFM, the manual, and it's best practices. So that's probably okay. And then to date, continued to be my recommendation is let's see, learning web design. This is the standard that I continue to recommend to people. It's been, in some places it's a little bit out of date, so I'm making my own annotations to it. Make sure you get the most recent edition, and it is money. You got to spend money on it unless you want to steal it. So I'll let that be your decision. But this is pretty much the standard for most colleges that teach HTML. We're not doing HTML today, though. We're still in Linux. HTML is coming up, so let's go look when that is coming. So HTML is coming. Oh, actually, we pushed HTML far back, because we're going to do JavaScript after. We're going to do Bash 1 week ago just to get your feet wet, and then structured data, and then JavaScript, and then HTML. So we have quite a few weeks left. We are only on week 2 of 16 weeks, day 8 of I think 112 days. So yeah, we're going to be here a while doing this stuff, but it's good. You already installed Node.js. Okay. I know you guys are excited to do all that stuff, but this other stuff is super important too, in terms of knowing your working environment. All right, so today is all about things that are imaginary, things that don't really exist. Well, it all doesn't exist, right? It's just all electrical impulses traveling through a computer, just like your brain, right? Do we really exist? But so the topic is virtualization and containerization as it applies to Linux. But this is also the time we're going to talk about it in general, like my love life. This is the only day that we are going to spend on virtualization and containerization. People make it their entire careers about either of these things, and we're going to spend a little under 3 hours talking about it. So I don't want anybody to expect some sort of like deep treatise on how to use these things. As usual, this is a primer, this is a boost, this is a way to tell you something exists and get you excited about it so you can go out and play with it for 4, 5, 10 hours and figure it out. So, because that's really required in order for you to understand what we're going to do today. Just the commands themselves are hard to memorize. So make sure you got your notes open. Get that, get your GitLab Markdown up and start writing on it. That is, if you don't want to like go through and watch all 3 hours of the video. Somebody asked me if I was ever going to do markers in all the videos for all the different topics, and I went no. Because unless you're going to help me do that, that is a monumental task. It's already bad enough having to just make the videos and get them on YouTube. So that's not happening, and it won't happen ever. There's just no way I can have that kind of time. I will tend to make individually. I will tend to make individual videos about topics that need instruction and need a lot of clarification at some point. But I doubt I'm going to be able to find the time for that until all 16 weeks of this boost are gone, particularly since we're going to do another boost right after that. So let me just plug the annual schedule really quick. So after we do this boost, I'm going to try my hardest to do mastering algorithms in C after a week break, and this is going to be a 4-week intensive C experience with algorithms, data structures. I know my brain is going to melt during that time too, because I don't remember any of it. Most people don't. But this is the kind of thing you're going to need to know to get a job. It's the kind of thing they teach you in college. The argument is that it makes you a better developer because your brain is thinking of different structures and algorithms that exist in computer science in general. So it just makes you all around a better technologist. I sort of buy into that idea, but because I didn't really thoroughly do any of them other than like the first years of 101s, I know what they are. I've always been skeptical of it so I'm actually going to change my tune on this. I'm going to give it a shot, and we're going to go through mastering algorithms with C, and you can be a beginner right along with me all over again when we do that. Okay, so next, if you didn't get good transcoding, I apologize. I have no control over that, nor can I restart the stream 10 times just to get a good transcoding. I refuse to do it. I know it's not, I'm sorry guys, don't blame me, blame Twitch. All right, if you want to help me get past that, help me get partner, however that happens. Okay, so, which they tell you is a way to get transcoding. Okay, next. I'm not going to do anything about yesterday. If you need help getting DigitalOcean or any of that stuff, you're going to have to talk to us in the Discord. So today is only about today's topics. I have said in the past, though, that if you need to ask questions on the stream, that every day of the week it's fair for you to ask questions about any other day. So I'm going to hold to that. So if you still have questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm sorry, I kind of misspoke there. I don't want people to feel like they have to be there for the day. I made a mistake. So yeah, so go ahead and do that. You can download with YouTube and all that. All right, so we're 5 minutes into this first day, and it's going to be rather intense. So here, if you haven't pulled up this the schedule for today, here's what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to Grok Virtualization, understand what virtualization is. We're going to talk about what containerization is. We're not going to go deep into the weeds on that. I just want you to know enough so that you can, answer the questions about what it is. If somebody asked you, you would know what technology to use in a given circumstance. That is the most important thing you need to know, is how to know what to pick and when to pick it. And then we're going to actually do some hands-on stuff. So make sure you've got your terminal ready to go, because we're going to do a lot of stuff to that. The first practical thing we're going to do today is we're going to play around with the Linux Docker containers that exist, and these are super exciting. I have only dabbled in them in the past, but as I've been preparing, I've been more impressed with the things you can do, particularly for education in a Docker container. So let's say you want to pull up you want to pull up an Ubuntu Docker container on your Windows machine without installing any virtual machine, just to practice installing software or setting up secure shell or something like that. Containers are your baby. We're going to get back to that. And then virtual machines are like, if you want a true desktop experience, this is a full-blown machine, and we will set one up, and we will install Pop! OS or whatever you want, and try to get that installed. Actually, it isn't going to take very long. I think the downloading is going to take the most time, so I'm going to try to time the downloads so that they happen over our breaks, which happen at 5 to the hour every hour, and then go until 10 after the hour. Okay, so what are Dockers? Dockers are, khaki pants. No, oh my gosh. So virtualization. What is virtualization? And what is containerization? If that's fine, we can try a different one, Bera. Maybe you could try Arch, or you can try Mint, or Debian Raw. After talking about all those distros that are out there, maybe you want to try one. Okay, so virtualization. What is it? If you go to if you click on the link, it'll tell you what it is. I'm going to open a new window over here. I tried to keep my names down small here. So virtualization in general is simulating the real thing. IBM, this is a fun fact that I actually learned preparing for this. IBM actually invented virtualization. It's funny. I had a feeling. I worked for IBM for 10-something years, and I had a feeling that they had actually invented it, but didn't get any of the credit for it. Turns out that's exactly what happened. So computer virtualization, they invented it, and then VMware later popularized it in the mainstream. A virtual machine is a machine running inside of another computer. So it's like, you start it up like an app. You start a computer up just like an app. Running inside another computer, the VM is called a guest. And the host is, the host computer. VirtualBox is the most popular virtual machine software since it's free. We'll play with that today, and it's also kind of sucky, to tell you the truth. It's got a lot of bugs. It was one of the number 1 targets for the pen testing competition in Washington. What was it called? Something of Pwn, King of Pwn. It's often a target for hackers who want to find 0 days. So it's not good software, but it's the best we have for a lot of people. It's the most popular virtual machine since it's free and available for all major desktops. VMware, who is the company who got really popular making this stuff for the consumers, is also available. It's a little bit more stable. It resizes better. It's also $300 or so. So there's other options out there. Everybody always beats me up about this. If you're on Linux, you can use QEMU or KVM, which are Linux only virtual machine engines. Okay, so glitches. Okay, so if you have a need to have a full computer to test that computer as if it were everything, including the desktop environment and everything like that, then you want virtualization. Okay, just a warning here: containerization is not virtualization, even though containerization uses virtualization. Okay, so now I'm going to jump forward because we have a lot to do, but you see I kind of blew past the first thing. If there's anybody who has any questions, especially about what virtualization is, be sure to ask them now, because I'm going to kind of move on. So let's see, snaps and Flatpak containers. Those are different things. I'd rather not get into snaps and Flatpaks right now, mostly because I don't know about them as deeply as I should. I do know that when you do a snap, it is a mount. It's a mounted volume. So I'm not sure we should talk about that. I'm talking about the mainstream stuff. Okay, let's see. Exited for today. I have a blurring question. I know burning question is VirtualBox and VMware. When you run a virtual machine, you lose your graphics card power. Is there a way for 2 systems in parallel from the same bare metal box without losing virtualization of your graphic card? I don't think so. In fact, that's a good question. So while we're on the virtualization topic, everybody wants to know, as I did, do I lose my graphics card capabilities? And I can answer the question definitively. In 2013, when I had VMware, I ran I ran Windows inside of my VMware, and I was able to play really high performance 3D games using something at the time that was called pass-through, which meant that the commands, the whatever, the functionality of your graphics card translated directly, and so it took over the graphics card, and I could use the graphics card without a problem. So it was able to do that without any glitching. I have not tried that recently. If there's anybody in our community who has recently tried to use VMware, by the way, at the time was the only product that did that. It was the only product that was good enough to do pass-through graphics card, calls. And so that was one of the reasons I got it, because I wanted to be able to run Windows games from my Linux machine without a problem. Now, there's lots of other ways to do that now. I don't want to go off on a tangent about how to run games on your Linux machine right now. Virtualization just happened to be one of the ways to do that in 2013. There's many, many other ways to do that today. Vulkan and all of the stuff that is involved with that. But that's not a topic for the boost. But if somebody wants to get into that, we can do that. Wine's been around forever. When people tell me about wine, guys, just so you know, wine is a kind of a clean room duplication of all of the main pieces of the operating system, but not the full operating system that is responsible for Windows. And it's basically a Windows emulation. It is not a virtualization of any kind. It's just a library that fills in all the gaps when a program that thinks it wants Windows, and so when it runs, it thinks it sees Windows on the system and does everything it's supposed to do. When I used Wine in the 90s and in early 2000s, it was a disaster, and we just laughed at it. And it's so funny to have so many younger people today recommending that I use Wine because it's so awesome to play games with now. I'm like, oh, no way, man. No way. I got like PTSD from trying to set Wine up back in the day, but we probably should do it at some point. I mean, it was disastrously bad in 2003 or so. So, but I'm really happy for you guys that you have it. So just so you know, and so back to virtualization. Yeah, everybody loves to hate Wine and loves the Wine at the same time. So virtualization is literally virtualizing all of the pieces of a computer, and let's review what those pieces are. Actually, because of this day, I went ahead and where am I? So because of today's topic, I went ahead and I actually changed the requirements to be here because I realized that we have never spoken about the basic parts of a computer. And if you don't know the basic parts of the computer, you are totally lost. Okay, so I made it as a prereq rather than covering it, but I am going to mention it. And it comes up when you talk about virtualization, because just like yesterday when we were using the cloud, we had to decide what kind of cloud server we want. By the way, when you make a cloud server, you're making a virtual machine. That's what you're doing. You're actually making a virtual machine in the cloud. Okay, so I almost think we should talk about virtualization, containerization before we talk about cloud going forward. In fact, I may switch those 2 days so that we can have this conversation about setting up the parameters or how much resources you want to give to your thing. That's the whole point of cloud on AWS, is that you can turn up the amount of CPU power, you can turn up the amount of memory, turn down the memory. You really can't mess with storage though, by the way. You can't add more, you can add more storage, but you can't really go back. So all of these parts of a computer are virtualized, which means that you can change them. So imagine if you had we joke all the time about downloading more RAM. If you don't know about that meme or that joke, go tell your friends to go download more RAM. Which is a joke because you can't really download RAM. RAM is a physical thing, but is it? RAM is a physical thing, but when you're talking about virtual machines, you can actually turn up more RAM, which, almost sounds like it's not real, but you can. You can actually go in there and shut down or freeze the system, give it more RAM, and then restart the system and unfreeze it. Another great thing about virtualization, I'm going really fast here, I realize. Another really great thing about virtualization is that you can freeze a system. So basically, you can make a system go to sleep as an app and then stop the whole VirtualBox program or whatever and come back on it. You can restart it and you wake the thing up and it remembers right where you were. Here's the best part of all though. This is the best part of all. In fact, virtual machines are hands down one of the absolute best ways to do education. And I actually was there was a local college here in Charlotte that I won't mention. I actually had one of their guys call me and say, can you talk to me about virtualizing or creating virtual snapshots for our education? Because what you do is you create different virtual machines at different stages, and you can say, okay, this machine has had all this stuff set up to this point, and then you try to mess with it. Maybe you run a fork bomb on it. So you want to run that fork bomb? This is how you do it. Go run your fork bomb on the virtual machine. All that stuff I told you not to run because somebody's trying to troll you. Go run it. Have fun. Go turn on a virtual machine, run it, crash the crap out of it, and then after that, what you can do is you can have you can actually just click snap back if you save your snapshot, and it will forget all the other stuff that you did on it. So this is extremely powerful. And in fact, this is how you can take backups in the cloud. In the cloud, all the backups are just snapshots. They're virtual machine snapshots, a point in time where everything down to the last bit has been saved in that state. And not just by the way, not just the hardware and all that stuff, but the actual runtime state, like what was running at that time, what was the clock set to at that time. It's just absolutely amazing, and that's because of the technology that allows things to sleep and stuff. So it's a lot like save scum. You guys know that term from the gaming world. You could be save scum, where you save it and then break it, and then go back and then save it. So virtual machines are really great for education, and this is why I recommend, particularly people who want to do for example, the biggest one that comes to mind is Arch. Okay, so let's say that you just want a system that's rock solid, and then we're going to talk about hardware tomorrow, but let's say you want a system that's rock solid, it's running really fast, it's running Linux on it, and so fine, you put Mint or Pop! OS or something that's really stable. But you really want to screw around. Maybe you want to do a Linux from scratch. Maybe you want to do Arch from vanilla, like I've been doing. And so for that kind of thing, you definitely want to just start out in a virtual machine. So you start out in a virtual machine, you do all your installs and all your building, you snapshot along the way to basically save yourself before you make a terrible decision, just like you would in a game. And then you build out your Arch. You go, oh my God, that was such a bad idea for me to use GUIDs in my file systems. I should have not used them. You don't know what I'm talking about yet, but you will. So you should say, oh man, I wish I could go back. And you can go all the way back. And so when you do all of that stuff, like some people try to do Arch on physical machine as their first. That's fine if you want to do it. But my point is that I don't recommend that to most people. Most people should practice on a VM first, and then get it on and get it all set up and ready to go, and maybe document your steps along the way, just like you would have to do if you're reading the Arch wiki. Everybody I know who does Arch, by the way, they always do. They always like make their own version of the wiki. Zeros has got a good one started. I've got little notes on mine. So you do your own, and then you make your own Arch installation based on your Arch customizations, and then you can go away and do that. So these are all the reasons to use virtualization. That's what I'm talking about now, is why you care about virtualization, because for one, it's the number one best way for you to try stuff out and break stuff, and that is the best way to learn, is to try stuff out and break stuff. And people have been bringing up a lot lately. The question of certification came up the other day because of Linux, and so the whole certification question is coming up, and everyone's like, is this $200 course worth it? How about this course, this course, this course? And the first instinct I have is, guys, just stop thinking you're going to be able to turn a key and take a course and know everything there is to know. You need to go get messy and dirty and break stuff. And I have a feeling you're going to learn more if you do that. So before you drop that money on that certification preparation exam that may or may not be current, the one thing you can do is go try all this stuff out on a virtual machine and set up your own strategy based on the outline of the certification exam, and follow that. I mean, I'm not saying don't do those programs, but I'm kind of am, because it's like you really can do all of this preparation on your own. You have the power to do it, and you have the outline of the stuff that's going to be on the certification exam, so that you can go try it out. You can try everything out and write all your notes on it and be an autodidact instead of depending on someone else to organize all this content for you. So I'm just going to stop there and keep going. We have a lot. So this first segment, by the way, is just an overview. We're going to need the entire segment to do Linux Dockers next. And then the third segment will be the other thing. So this is a bunch of talky stuff here. But let's go through to just make sure you understand. So a CPU microprocessor, that's the number of cores. That's the brain. That's the central processing unit. The term CPU gets confused a lot between the chip, the cores that are on the CPU, the number, there are actually multiple processors on a central processor these days. So then you can, oh, wow, that's nice. Good job, code. And people use the term CPU to refer to your case that has your computer in it a lot of time too. RAM is random access memory. This is really powerful today. Your video cards have RAM these days too. This is how your computer remembers things. It's ultimately how your computer can do multiple things at the same time, how it can remember multiple things at the same time. Whenever I talk about RAM, I always explain it as if you had a desk and you were asked to do homework for lots of things, and you could only fit one textbook and one notebook on the table at the same time. So the equivalent of getting more RAM in the old days, if you had a desk, would be get a bigger desk, right? Because you could put more things on the desk instead of swapping them out and putting them on the floor and grabbing another thing and putting it on the desk. That is exactly what is happening when you don't have enough RAM. When you're trying to do a lot of things, your computer has to put something on the floor, swap it out so that it can put something else on the desk and that you're actively using, and that's why there's usually a delay while it's doing that. So that is what RAM is about. RAM is how many things can your computer remember at the same time, and that sometimes makes your computer faster because it can put lots of things out on the table all at one time and be faster at looking at all those things, even though the speed of its brain hasn't changed at all, right? If you want to actually change the raw speed of a computer, you would change the number of cores, which is how many individual brains it has. That means it's like, multiple eyes, multiple heads that it could look out. And concurrency is a big deal because, as you know, there's multiple processors these days. 4 processors is, normal, and systems are coming with 8 and up to 62. Was it 64 on the System 76? So the world is getting broader with processors. Now, by the way, let me just tell you something else about virtualization. When you're buying a computer, because when we do virtualization, you have to give every one of your virtual machines at least one CPU, one core. And if your system has 4 cores, that means that, if you give one of your systems 2 cores, there's only 2 cores left for your computer to run on. So the rest of your computer gets slower. So this is really exciting news, these multiple cores that are coming out, because I know engineers, we would get 32 gig of RAM, and we would get like 4 core systems, and we were super excited to be able to run like 3 or 4 virtual machines at the same time. So the thing that's really cool about that is we could actually emulate an entire network inside of our computer while we looked at it without touching hardware at all. We could say, wow, I wonder what would happen if I actually did this ARP attack. So, and again, for education. So when you're picking a computer, it's really important, if you want to go into particularly pen testing and cybersecurity, that you get a system that has 4 or more. I would say 8 cores if you can get it, because that allows you to have way more cores. For example, in terms of security, so DEF CON, when you go to DEF CON and you go to OSCP and you're trying to get your OSEE, they require you to have a system that's got at least 4 cores and has a lot of power. Because why? Because you need to run a virtual machine that's running Windows 10 so you can break it over and over and over again in the process of fuzzing to try to find things that are wrong with it that can be hacked. And you can't do that if you've only got, if you don't have a big enough computer. So I used to be that I was like, oh, what kind of size of computer do I need for development? Well, if you're just doing web development, yeah, you need, your MacBook Air is probably fine, or, not really, but, get a Linux machine. It's got your Walmart special for $400 or $500. You can do all kinds of web development on that and never, miss a beat. But if you truly want to get into operations and particularly pen testing and forensics and security engineering, then you really do need a system that's got 8 cores or more, 32 32 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, this is going to be your primary tool going forward, you know, forever. So you probably want to put a little bit more in there. Now, if you, doesn't mean, I didn't say you have to have a laptop. Most people do because they move around a lot, but these days we're not moving that much. So if you can actually get a better deal with this if you go ahead and if you go ahead and you get you know, like even like one of these MSI Tridents is doing just fine, and you know, they're like $800, so you can get more processing power out of a smaller computer. Okay, enough of that. Storage. So storage is disk space. These days, disk space is super duper cheap. So it's not that big. Even SSD is cheap. I mean, seriously, it's gotten seriously cheap. USB thumb drives, you need to know what those are. And that's what storage is. Storage is where you're storing things. This is going to become a big question. We talk about containerization. Containers do not provide storage. We're not permanent storage anyway, and we're going to talk about that. Yeah, quantum computing quietly smiles in the corner. This is true. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. It's really going to be interesting how fast quantum comes up. Have say peripherals. So you need to know about, you know, mouses and keyboards and screens and all that. And that's important because when you're doing a virtual machine, you actually turn over control of your peripherals to the virtual machine, and that can really get messy depending on how well your VirtualBox is actually gotten better, but it's generally pretty bad about detecting your mouse and keyboard and everything and moving you over properly. VMware is very seamless. If you like scroll over the window, it takes over control of your mouse and keyboard and everything. But if you think about the kind of processing that has to happen under the hood for that to work, it's pretty amazing because it actually has to take over your, you know, all the devices. The devices have to be then sending signals to this virtual machine instead of the one on top of it. And they can get out of sync. Sometimes your mouse is not in the same position and all that jazz. So all of these are like things that will come up with virtualization. With a virtual machine, you can't actually full screen it. And I used to do this all the time, actually. And you can't even tell it's not a Linux machine. And if your machine's fast enough, that's the real key. If your machine's fast enough, you'll be able to go ahead and just use it as if it were a Linux box. But there are a lot of people usually give up on that after a while because it is detectably slower than running on bare metal, of course. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. So that's just, I just wanted to talk about those basic things in terms of virtual machines. It comes, whether we talk about cloud VMs or we're talking about your own VM running on your computer, either way, they're virtual machines. And as I said, I'm going to reverse the order. So we do virtualization, containerization before cloud next boost. But since we've already talked about it. Now, containerization. Now, this is where people get really confused. It's where I got really confused for a very long time. And I'm going to give you the simplest comparison, and you can actually follow the link to containerization from the RWX site if you want to, and you can read about the definition there. But I'm going to go ahead and read it. It's under it's /contain is the fast link. Okay, so all right, so containers. This freaks people out when I first say it, but containers are essentially applications. And you just need to think about them that way. There's so many people who will disagree with a lot of that statement. Say, well, blah, 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 blah. But it will help you as a beginner if you think of a container as an application and not a computer. Okay, the fundamental difference for most beginners to get their heads around what the difference is that a virtual machine is a machine and a container is an application. And you're like, well, but you can have a virtual machine. I mean, you can have a container that has Ubuntu in it. Yes, you can, but it just bear with me, okay? So containers are essentially applications that are composed of other applications and systems that are contained in a nice, pretty, happy container. They're portable, they're running on technology such as Docker. Docker is the containerization technology that really took off. It wasn't the first, but it was definitely the biggest, and it continues to be the biggest. You can't talk about computing today without hearing about Docker someplace. Docker is the containers are the fundamental element of all of this DevOps movement, which is both a technical movement and an IT management movement. The relationship between developers and operations, and what does it mean to be an SRE, a site reliability engineer. We're not going to talk about today, but those are kind of the IT management issues related to developers and operations. Whereas Docker and Kubernetes and those kind of technologies you've heard about, those are the technologies involved with allowing these sort of processes to happen. So containers have been front and center in the DevOps movement because they make it very easy to hand off the application with all of its complicated pieces to an operations team and say, here's my application. And then the operations team can say, okay, we're going to give you this amount of memory, this amount of this amount of CPU, this amount of this, and you can never go over it. And if you're old enough, you remember things like shrouded environments before, and it's kind of that same idea, except for it's way more. So what it means is that you have a container that's got all of the components of your crazy complicated, Postgres database driven, application that's got a JSON API and GraphQL. It's all inside of this container. And then you hand that over the fence or whatever they used to say to operations, and they run it for you, but they run it with very specific constraints so it doesn't go out of control. In fact, they've gotten it so crazy now that they can actually take that container and make multiple versions of the container. So now you even have redundancy. So you can have your application fall back. You can make your application so that another version of the application can run at the same time and help you with the load. And so the reason it's named a container and the reason that the mascot is a whale is because it's very much designed like containers on a ship in a dock. It's where it was famously, that's where that idea came from. Is it's like, you see these ships that are shipping lanes, kind of ships, and they have these box containers, and they wanted to be able to take all of the complexity of an application and then just put it on the ship and let it run. But it's much more than that. It's actually, just finding the constraints about where it is and how it runs and everything. So the absolutely the best comparison. So I continued to read about containers, and they said, well, containers are also virtual machines to a degree. And I was like, what? Wait. And I actually read one of the Docker trainers and I linked to it in the thing. You can go read it. And he had this fantastic comparison. I want to give him credit. What's his name? I actually used his name in here. So Mike Coleman explains that virtual machines are like houses and containers are like apartments in an apartment building. So they both use virtualization. The difference is that a virtual machine is the house. It has the plumbing, it has everything in it. It is one machine, one computer. And a container is like an apartment that has the living space and all that plugs into all of those things, but that shares infrastructure with other apartments. So it shares plumbing, it shares, power, all of those things, right? So I love that comparison. That's got to be the cleanest comparison of what they are. But that does mean there's still a virtual machine involved. But the virtual machine is then the entire the entire apartment building itself is then the virtual machine. A very complicated virtual machine that's able to rent out new people to new apartments and put them in there and make them happy. But that's the comparison. And I really love that. So that helps you, get your head around that. So the thing about containers is that you can, I don't know if you saw when we did Minecraft the other day, somebody ran, you can run Minecraft from a Docker container and just pull it right up. Do Docker containers lose performance? Well, that's really the question. You can definitely configure them so that you don't lose performance. I've heard Bob say that a virtual machine can actually be more efficient on the network that you can increase your network performance by using a virtual machine than using actually raw. That was the first time I've ever heard that. And he said because it bypasses a lot of the IP stack that is in the hardware, and it has its own IP stack for a virtual machine. So if that's true, I would suggest that it is possible to have virtual machines, containers that also benefit from that speed. So let's go back to this idea of containing stuff, right? So you can put whatever you want in those containers. You can put, you can put a Minecraft server, as we said. You can put an ls command if you want. I mean, you can put, I actually thought about this last night. I thought about putting my links command, the one I used to browse the internet, but because it's got, 3 or 4 pieces to it, it's got the configuration files and it's got a script that it wraps another script. I was like, I wonder if I can put that in a Docker container to make it simpler. The most common use of containers today is for, microservices, which is a really debatable topic right now. A microservice is the idea of splitting up everything your organization does into tiny little services that are web enabled and speak JSON, which is a structured language for communicating data, which we'll learn later. And so what they do is they chop them all up, right? And so then each one of these microservices would have its own database inside of it and everything. But here is the biggest thing, the biggest letdown, I will say, for me about containers. Containers do not provide state. And I'm going to say that again. When you run, so like I said, JSON or protobufs, there's plus we didn't even talk about gRPC and all that other stuff. What he's talking about how microservices communicate. We probably have some people around that know much more about that than I do. Super exciting stuff. But containers are bad for databases, right? So I was just going to say, so one of the problems with containers is, it's actually the problem, if you ask me, is that if a container is an application, applications don't remember anything when they end, right? Unless an application has written something out, has written something to a file, or has communicated something over the internet, it doesn't matter what it was doing while it was running. And it's super important that you get that. That is one thing that I did not get. I thought it was when I first went into this, I thought that containers were going to be some magical way to reallocate, disk space for me in sort of a clustered environment. And no. Kubernetes does do some of that. So if you decide, hey, you need this much disk space to run, but it doesn't actually set up the connection, and you have to explicitly. So it's no different than running an application. So for example, if you're going to run a database application, you have to tell your database application where the files are that are going to contain, the binary globular data that it's going to just have seek access to and be able to, be really fast and write it. But when you start up a database, you have to tell the database where that file is, and when the database stops, the database goes away out of memory, and all you have left is what was on disk. So it's really important to understand that there is no internal storage management within a container, that you have to connect it to a volume to do that. And we're actually going to do that. I'm going to show you how you can mount your home directory from a Ubuntu container while you're running it, and it will pull and it sees everything in your container. In your home directory. Let's see, having container packed with your config is a good thing. You will end up mounting it with other directory, and it's not that bad at all. Well, that's okay. That's what I'm just trying to talk about right here. He's talking about databases, but the idea of mounting volumes. So. I don't want to confuse beginners out there too much, but basically what it means is that when you start up your container, just like any other application, when you start up, let's say you start up a database, you could either have a config file, or you would have an argument that says, hey, here's where I want you to write all this stuff, all this file, right? Or all this data for the database. You'd have to tell the application where to do that. And when you run a Docker container, it's no different. So for example, if you say, hey, I want this container to use my home directory, you have to say, hey, here's the home directory I want you to use. I want you to mount it. I want you to use this. But and you can actually tell it devices that you wanted to use, and including your GPU. And I'm going to link to a video by Jess Frazzle, who is a big Docker girl from, she was from Microsoft and now she works for Oxide Computing. And she runs, her entire operating system is just Docker containers, because she doesn't like all this stuff that applications do to her system that she can't back out. So she runs a Docker container to do everything, and then she's got these big old long argument strings that give her each of her Docker containers, when they run, access to the things she needs. So she has a Docker container for running a graphics application. In fact, in the presentation she shows she runs a Steam game from a Docker container, and when it goes away, it's gone. But so Docker containers are different in that you can say, I want to give this container access to my GPU. And so it will then be able to write directly to your GPU. And that is something you have direct control over. Whereas with virtualization, it's just one big machine, and it's however that machine was installed, and whatever the virtual machine software has done and how much access it has to the different devices. It's all kind of slidery, settings that you change. You don't specifically decide which resources is this container going to have access to by device, by storage, and all that other stuff. It's really cool. And you can write your own containers to do different things that might be harder for you to configure when you go up and down. We only have 3 minutes left. I'm just going to talk about this. Again, the goal for this first segment was just to get your head around what are the differences between these two. And so when you go searching for them, you have some way to think about it. One of the things, just as a side note, a fun fact, when you are doing the Docker container to see about all of your running containers, the command is actually PS. And if you know about Unix, and in Linux, you already know that what PS is. PS lists out the running processes. So in order to see all of the containers that are running on your system, you do a Docker PS, and it will show you the running containers, the running processes. So there is a one-to-one correlation to applications. Again, here, a running container is, it's a Docker process, so to speak, and a running application is a running application on your system, like a shell script or something, is also a process. So once again, I think it's just better for you to get your head around all that. Kubernetes, though, we do probably need to mention it. Kubernetes is a layer on top of all of this. There were actually several managers for all of these containers, because obviously there's starting to be lots of them, and another one from Docker that is pretty much died at this point. It's too bad, because it's good technology, Docker Swarm, which comes with it, and by Kubernetes is the one from Google. And what these are these kind of heavy-handed big systems for managing multiple containers across multiple computers. And once again, we can go to the metaphor of a computer running multiple processes. So Kubernetes, the best way for me to get my head around it is, you can think about, you throw all these computers together, they all get kind of clustered, but not in the sense of old school clusters. They're all together. They have really high speed networking between the two of them. And then you give a container to Kubernetes and say, hey, I want this to run. I need it to run this much. And it organizes where to put the container across all of those systems. So Rancher is one of those operating systems. So usually when you combine a whole bunch of computers into a Kubernetes cluster, you're basically making, it's not quite a supercomputer, because it's not sharing, technically it's not sharing storage across the board. Usually people will have another computer that's a storage array, in order to have them all work together. But basically you're making logically, you're making kind of a big computer that has multiple cores, only the cores are the computers, and the resources from those computers, the amount of RAM they have, the amount of CPUs they have, are pooled together, and the master Kubernetes head decides where the container is going to go and live. So that means that if you say, okay, this thing needs 2 gig of RAM. Okay, well, this one needs 8 gig of RAM. Well, this machine doesn't have 8 gig of RAM. Okay, so I'm going to put it over here. Maybe you have one that's 2 gig of RAM. It's like, I want here, but you might say, okay, I want 2 or 3 versions of that container to run. Okay, well, I'm going to put one here and one here and one here. So Kubernetes does all of the complicated work of deciding where the containers go and making best use of all those resources, and showing you, it has a nice pretty dashboard for you to see where everything's working. So it's not completely accurate, but to a large degree, it's as if you had a supercomputer and you're just telling it where to run your different processes. And it's as if you combine computers and, containers being applications. You just told them, hey, look, where can you run most effectively right now? And it does all of that management for you. And so in a sense, it's almost like, how if you have a multi-core system, your operating system decides where things go. In fact, my short way of saying this, I know it's a stretch, but Kubernetes is the operating system of containers. So if containers are, running applications and processes, Kubernetes is an operating system for that whole thing. And it just decides how to make use of all the resources. And if you think of it that way, it might help you. So when you list out all the running processes, it's not just for one machine. It could be for all of your machine. And then Kubernetes is kind of the overarching OS for all of that. I know that's a stretch, but logically it helps me think of it that way. All right. So when we come back, I'm going to come back at 10 after, and then we will be doing some Linux Docker containers. Nobody needs to be afraid of that. It's actually pretty easy. If you want to do something in the meantime, go create an account on hub.docker.com. You don't really need an account other than if you want to make your own, or you want the process scheduler. Yeah, that's a good comparison. Is kind of like a big process scheduler. So, Docker run hello world. Yeah, if you don't know how to do that, go ahead and do that. I'm going to be right back. I'll put the music on. I'm going to leave this up though so you guys can see. I guess we can put some fish over here. I mean, we got to have the fish. All right. See you in about 10. Where'd you go? Oh my gosh. What kind of song singing is that? I got a minute or two to drink this coffee before we get back at it. There are a lot of broken links on RWXGG right now. I'm just going to warn you. It is a work in progress. Thank God for modern technology, though. You want me to show you? So here, watch. I'm going to run Muffet on a little bonus for this minute. I'm going to run Muffet. I have AFK. I just didn't do it because I didn't have room and I wanted to show what we were going to work on next. That's why. So Muffet, we do Muffet against my localhost 3000, which is my preview server, and connection refused. I must have my preview must be down. Got to turn that back on. There we go. So here's a preview server, and we're going to do a new one. And I'm going to run Muffet on it. Muffet HTTP //localhost. It's running a thing called browser sync. Super cool. We're going to talk about that in the web stuff. Port 3000. And what this will do is this will give me every single broken link. See all those 404 broken links? I feel like a bad person. Yes, 3 seconds left. But that's how I know I've got lots of broken links. I've been doing a lot of reorganizing, and even though you can do redirects with Netlify, I have not. There's all the redirects. I'm trying to resize all of my my everything. I've got a new standard, just in case you're wondering, that I'm trying to follow, where this is all the stuff that's gone in rdbx.gg over the last 3 weeks, and each one of these is kind of a tiny little, I call them node, knowledge node, and I made a rule for myself and the contributors saying, hey, I need to keep it under 12 characters because I want you to be able to type in on with your thumbs if you wanted to like jump directly to a thing, which means I've been trying to come up with like pseudo subdomain names for this. They're not domains, but you know, some way easy to get to. And in the process, I ended up breaking like 50 links that I have to go back and fix. But I'm not going to do that right now because we got lots to do. In fact, this is exciting, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not very good at it because I don't do it very much. But I am going to try to do this, what we're doing, a lot more. Since rediscovering Docker containers for Linux, I want to just say that we're going to do that first because the virtual machine is something you guys can do on your own pretty easily if I don't make it. But I'm really impressed with the educational possibilities with just a plain old container. So you can have Windows or Mac, whatever, as long as you have Docker installed. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start some of this. So you need to download and install Docker and get that on your system. If you are actually, if you go to /docker rdbx, Muffet is this thing that I just used to show you all your broken links, but we're not talking about that right now. It was kind of a little break time conversation. So if you want to see everything we're doing here, I've already done a lot of notes on this on rdbx.gg/docker. Docker Compose automates everything. Well, it does do a lot, I won't lie. There's a lot still for me to learn on this. I don't use Docker nearly as much as I think I should, and so I'm personally really interested in this. So Docker is the first application of popularized use of containerization. Docker, you can go, there's hub.docker.com where you can go get any number of Docker containers that have been set, or they're called images actually, which is, an image is a container that's not running. A container is a running image somebody wrote. A place where containers of all kinds are uploaded and available to run with a single command from the terminal, including the full Ubuntu Linux server with an interactive bash shell. The benefit of containers is that they can be run on anything that supports the container engine. So this includes Windows. So if you want to run Linux on Windows and don't want to use WSL, you can do that with a couple commands on Docker. A lot of people do this. Same with Mac. In fact, let me just say, if you are a Mac user and you want a true Linux experience for to go through the book and everything, up until like today, I've been recommending people to do a VirtualBox and run on Mac. But my suggestion as of today is, if you have a Mac, is to install Docker on there and run an Ubuntu container that you configure and mount to your directory, because you get an actual Linux experience. Windows requires Windows Professional version to run Docker. That's interesting news. It's too bad. It's unfortunate. So this provides another way to get Linux. So if anybody actually has done this on a Mac, I have not. I would really love to see your experience running Docker on a Mac, because I think it may actually be the single fastest way to get a Bash terminal that is a Bash Linux terminal, not a Bash BSD terminal, which is what you're getting with Darwin on Mac by default. And so if somebody wants to try that, yes, please try that on a Mac. I haven't had a chance to test that yet, but I'm super encouraged by this. So the steps to do that, by the way, I wrote those down in here as a reminder for myself. This is really important. Just like we talked about earlier, anything you do with Docker is not going to be saved. So if you use Docker for education and all of a sudden you start writing a really cool like Magic 8-Ball scripted bash in your container, when your you might even like disconnect from your container and it'll still run. But as soon as that container goes away for any reason, it's gone. That means if you lose power or anything. So when you're doing this, please make sure to pay attention, and I'm not going to go into it in depth, but to figuring out a way for you to save that, which means if I were you, I would figure out a way to mount a directory just for your Docker work. That could be your home directory. Part of me is a little scared of that, because if I'm screwing around with the container, I don't want it to blow away the stuff in my home directory. I almost want to make a directory just for working with Docker, so that it stays around. But you can do all kinds of fun things. So let's get into it. So sudo apt install docker IO. It's docker.io. I found out the hard way. There is another one, but that's the one you want. And by the way, if anybody out there has any information to the contrary of what I'm saying, please let me know. I am by no means am I a Docker expert, but I do see the value of it. So sudo docker run hello world. This is just a way for you to test it out once you get in there. And then I'm just going through all the steps real quick, and then we'll do them. Then you can add yourself to the Docker group. And I actually am going to add how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and put a thing here. The actual way, if I remember the command, I want to put the command here for you. You probably can't see that. I think I'm on top of it. So the way that you should add a user group is something like this. I think it's usermod-ag docker. And did I do that right? Let me go test it. I need to test it. So these are all commands that we will get into when we get into the book. I think even if we don't cover the commands in the book, we'll make sure to cover them because they are kind of important. Let's see here. Do ag docker and then username something like that. It's weird how text visible through shirt but not your face. Is it seriously? Oh, because it's green. It's because I have a green shirt on. $user. Yeah, okay, fine. If you want. Thank you for that. So that'll add you to the Docker group. You could do it by editing it, but if you were to ask how to change groups and you said edit the file on a certification test, you probably fail it. So you should use the commands for that stuff, because the reason you use these commands for that kind of thing is because things like, I don't know, maybe not in this case, but yeah, that's what I'm just saying. I edit Etsy groups, but I have dye on my beard. Have to dye my beard. Is it like going right through? Can you see like through my shirt? That's kind of weird. That's awesome and weird. We're just gonna proceed. If someone wants to get this to the topic. Let's see, a more fundamental level, they can use Linux namespaces. Ooh, nice. Sounds like you guys know what you're talking about. So, so after that, you don't need to do sudo any longer. This puts you in the Docker group. Docker can be used to run any number of applications, and then here's an example of This is an example of it running with Bash. Let me just unpack this for you really quick. It's kind of hard for you to see, so I'm going to show it to you. There you go. So Docker run. So that starts up a new Docker. Docker can run anything, including graphical apps. Yep, it can run graphical apps as well. They just have to be given access to the graphic resources of your system, and you have to set things like the display variable. In fact, if you want a good I'll show you the link for Jess Frazzle doing this very thing. It's a really great overview, better example than I'm providing. So YouTube, let's see, youtube.com, and it's Jess Frazzle Docker. So here she is, Willy Wonka container. This is the link. I needed to get the link anyway because I'm going to put it in the web page.
My command line.
So here's.
This is going to be a very.
She does everything, dude. She's like so funny to watch when she does this. So I'm going to put it down in the resources link right now for you. Willy, what is it called? Willy Wonka of containers. Willy Wonka containers. Everybody loves Willy Wonka, man. So that's, and she actually goes through a bunch of that stuff. And if you want that link, I can generate it right now. Just go ahead and run a build. There's my build. Oh, it's so much faster now that I have concurrent processes in Bash. It's so much faster. And then I'm going to go ahead and push that. Willy Wonka. And so that should go. You should have that in like 20 seconds or 30 seconds or so. If you guys want to go see the update to that page. All right. So back to this Docker stuff. We're not going to get into the weeds on this. This is after this is me exploring how you would install a server. So one of the greatest things about Docker is you can actually practice installing servers in a way that's not going to kill you. And so all of the stuff that's required for essentials and particularly for LPIC 1 and 2, all of that study that you have to do, all of the practice is like right there for you to do because nothing is installed by default in these things. So let me show you what I mean by that. But let me just summarize all the commands that there's like over almost 100 commands in Docker. So the ones you really need to know about are run, which will download it and run it. Okay. If you run it with IT, it stands for, you should pretty much always just remember run it if you're doing command line stuff. Okay. Docker images are similar to VMs. No, not at all. No, they're not. Docker images are similar to applications that are not being run. A Docker image is closer to a bash script before you run it than it is to a VM. So it just is a complicated, application. So just to recap what we covered already. So here we go. Docker run. So what does Docker run do? Run-it is a good way to remember it. It stands for interactive and it stands for TTY. If you give it I without the T, you can't type. It doesn't do what you want. But if you give it an IT, you get a command line. But you got to make sure that the application you're running, which is over here on the end, is actually an interactive application. And if it's not, you can't do that. You can use Docker to run all kinds of things that are not interactive. In fact, probably I would argue most of the stuff is not interactive. It's usually, something that's like answering on a port, 8080 someplace and answering web pages and stuff. I mean, I would think it's probably fair to say most Docker containers are running some sort of web app, but not necessarily. They're used for all kinds of things. But if you want the interactive, so just remember IT, run IT. So if this has not been the image has not been downloaded from, the all-powerful hub.docker.com, it will download it, add the image to your list of images, and then it will go ahead and run it. ps-a, yeah. And then the -d, this is important. So the -d keeps it running even after you exit the container. So you've got this interactive process, you're interacting with the command line, and you type exit and you disconnect. Without the -d, the whole container just dies, it goes away. If you put the -d there, it will continue to run and you can reattach to it. Not in the SSH way, even though you can also do that, but in the sense of I can then later exec -it. Don't forget the -at I found. And then you can reconnect to your named container, in this case my Linux, and then this is the name of the image. So this is just an arbitrary name that I'm giving to this container so I can refer to it later. You actually don't need that if you aren't planning on ever reconnecting to it. So that might be a case like maybe you want to just run in a container really quick to see what Ubuntu has by default on it or something like that, and you don't even care if it throws it away after. Well, that would be the case there. Most of the time though, you're going to want to keep a thing running, and I have read more than one sob story from somebody who started up a container, did all kinds of work in their container, and then lost power, and all of the stuff that was in their container is just gone. So please don't, you just remember that there's no snapshots here. Okay, there's no snapshots. Virtual machines, that's where the snapshots are. If you want a snapshot, you can go back to this saved to disk that guarantees that point in the sand is going to exist later. If you want that kind of level of recovery for your learning, then you want a virtual machine. Containers, they just throw everything away unless you've explicitly told it not to do that. So then this is Ubuntu is the name. Bash is the program to run. Some people put bin bash here. That is the program to run. It is the default for the Ubuntu image. You see, important point. You can snapshot a file system, but not the running process. This is true. Do the real work in a Docker file and VCS it. Yeah, this is beginners ACUD. This is so that's probably a great idea, but I don't know if they're going to be right now. They just want to run the thing. Docker is meant for laptop. Yeah, that's true too. It's nice and lightweight. Thanks for that. Let's see. So Docker exec-it my Linux dash. So this is after you've disconnected with exit or whatever. You can come back and look at it. And then I have here, you can practice setting up a secure shell server. So as you're going through all of the things in like Linux Essentials or the outline for LPIC 1 or 2, if you want to study on your own, it might say there how to install software in Debian. Well, you can try it. You can go in here and try all these things. And there's your good old, I put you here. I should probably put user there. Yeah, instead of you. Oh, I'll do that later. All right, so let's do, it doesn't hurt. I'm just going to do it right now. So user, and let's actually go run these things, but hopefully you've got a command line up and you're already doing this while you're just kind of got one ear listening to me. Yeah, I'm just going to put you need to know it. So this is the other thing that's really cool is you can actually, all that stuff we did with SSH keys, you can practice it without having to pay for a cloud machine. You can practice it by running it on your own machine here and connecting to it. And that's what the rest of this is all about, is how to do SSH. And there's a few commands you might want to know. Docker PS to list all the running process containers, Docker stop for the thing, and then remove. I went off on the docker.com site because you want to see what it looks like in links. I almost gave up using Docker because of this. This is their website. This big black hole is the Docker Hub website, which requires JavaScript. It's 100% non-standard. It doesn't comply to any internet standard that exists anywhere, and yet this is the #1 place to go access information about Docker Hub containers. It's an absolute disaster. It's a disgrace, and frankly, the web developer team from Docker needs to fire their web developers and hire new ones who actually know how to create sustainable content. I put a rant in my hub about that, and I'm not sad. I call them brain dead. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to be nice about that. That is unexcusable. This is such an important site for you to make it depend on JavaScript. Seriously, it's for you to make that level of site depend on JavaScript. You've got a serious problem if you're making. All right. So how's it going, guys? I'm usually not that angry, but when I go to hub.docker.com and can't access it from the terminal because they made their site depend on JavaScript, I get really triggered. It's probably one of the biggest things that triggers me in the world, is the people that are destroying our World Wide Web because they're making it depend on JavaScript when it doesn't need to at all. I mean, it's nice to have as an option, but it does not need to be completely dependent on it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against JavaScript. I love it. I just don't make your content and sites that are that important depend on it. Docker Hub is not an application. It's a place. It's a repository of stuff that you should be able to go read about. And it just triggers me. Okay, I got to recover here and get back. Help me out. Let's do some of these commands. So I'm actually going to let's go ahead and run a hello world container. Let's go ahead and do that. I don't just love leaving the shell. I like having, I mean, that content, who knows, it might not even be readable by somebody who's blind. Maybe they want to read it. Okay, so let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I should be able to do the Docker. Did you guys get your Docker set up, by the way? PS-A. Let's list all the containers. I'm going to have to do sudo with mine until I do my... By the way, when you do the sudo thing, you have to re-log in, and I haven't done that yet. So I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to sudo dash, and I'm going to log back in as me. And I'm actually going to... I know this is a silly way to do this, but I'm going to... This is the same as if you re-logged in. And... Oops. Wrong thing. SURWXROB. All right, so this now should have, I should be able to have my group and see if I have, yeah, now I have a Docker group. So you have to have this Docker group, guys, or you won't be able to do without sudo. I know that's probably basic stuff for other people, but I had to practice that. So I should be able to do my Docker ps-a, which means I don't have any. Oh, I have some. I guess I do have some running. Sleepy Brat. Hello. Oh, my Hello World is still running. I didn't realize my Hello World was still there. So I guess it's still there. So I'm going to Docker kill that one. Just play. We're just going to play here. So I think I'm still standing on top of these. I should probably switch panes here. In fact, let me do that. Let me do a pane switch. So 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to switch panes, swap dash pane, S1 T2 swap. There, that's better. Now you don't care if this stuff is over here. It'll be a little bit easier. Okay, so that was a tmux command I just did. I want to get a little bit more of this on the screen. Yeah, okay, so let's see. You know what? I might just go ahead and close this one. So all we're really doing for the rest of this thing is playing with Docker and trying to run different things. So there's really no right way to do this. Let's just don't add people to Docker if you don't trust them, of course. Let's see. It's you're giving them root. No kidding. Yeah. You can trust me though. So I just did it. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's important to mention. It's like giving him sudo access. Currently trying to run Docker daemon inside WSL. Refuses to initialize the network controller due to an unknown protocol. Wow, that's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, we're just experimenting together, having fun here. So Docker ps-a. It looks like why would it still need all of the screen there? I gave you plenty of screen room. This is not a good UI. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Docker stop hello world should be done. No container hello world. Oh, container ID. Is it by ID? I wonder if it's got it. I have to do it by this container ID. Oh, these are random ones that, yeah, they are. So this is again, these are like processes. Wow, I thought one didn't stop after all. Is it to be able to access your USB pen test drive? Yeah, it's a nice one. Docker desktop for Windows. Apparently I have my Ubuntu is still running, but I could have swore that I got rid of it. Guess I didn't. Use Docker kill. See, I'm not a Docker pro, so you guys can help me out here. Docker ps-a Docker kill this container ID. Cannot kill container ID is not running. Oh, well then I guess I just need to remove it. Yep, there we go. There we go. That's what was wrong. I didn't remove it. So yeah, I mean, this is fun. I actually like this. It's so similar to like running applications. Yeah, they're stopped. They weren't actually dead. Stop using sig term first. I can't help it. Stop does a sig term and then it. Okay, that's cool. Man, you guys know a lot. I'm glad I have the community here to back us up. So Docker. So this is the one hello-world that everybody does. That this will download the image from hub if it's not already downloaded, and it will run it. What did I do wrong, guys? Something Docker run. It should run it. I know it does. I just ran that last night. Why isn't it doing it this time? Let's see. Docker run hello world. Generate a message to the Docker client contracted Docker Daemon. Docker Daemon pulled the whole image from the Docker hub. I'm gonna create a new hub image reading Docker Daemon stream. Huh. That's different. It's not doing it like it did. I might have to restart my whole Docker thing. I was messing with it last night. It did run it? Oh, that is the hello world. Okay, sorry. Yeah. No, this is the other one I was going to do. So I actually ran a Kali image last night. And let's see, I'm trying to memorize all my commands too. So Docker IT, let's see, run -it. I'm going to do the daemon. Actually, let's do it without the daemon and without a name. Let's just run Ubuntu for just throw it away. This you probably don't want to do it this way, but this is one way. See how quick it just gets you in a command line? I love that. So here you go. You can do it. It's like run. It's just like a full-blown system. You can run top over here. You can see there's nothing here. One of the things that I found out right away, you can run a Minecraft server. You definitely can. But one of the things that annoyed me about it, I will tell you, is that it doesn't come with basic things. So here's another command that I really learned to love. It's called Docker inspect. And you have to inspect the specific image. So I think this is the name of the image, I'm guessing, right here. So this will give you all the information about your system. I'm doing the wrong one. I didn't give mine a name, so now I'm kind of stuck. So Docker ps-a. Oh wait, I have to do that whole sudo thing on this one. So forget that. Let me just exit out for here. Now the problem is that now my container is gone. See, watch. If I do Docker-a, I have the containers, but I'm not there anymore. Exited 7 seconds ago. It kept the container, but it's not still running. I think it's actually not available. VM start time is greater than 1 minute. Container start time is less than 1 millisecond. That's completely true. If you're just trying to start something, but I tell you what, it's still slower than an application. So I thought about putting my links in there, and I thought, no, it's going to slow down my command line. Yeah, and so yeah, there's advantages to both. Yeah, other than 1080p to watch, was it just me? I'm sorry, this is locked down to 1080p. I have no control over that. Okay, let's see what else we can do here. What else can we break? So I have a running image. I have 3 hello world images, and apparently they all ran, and they're still here. They've been exited, but are they still there? No, they were there. So yeah, I didn't know about the -a, to tell you the truth, on the ps command. The rem is -rm removes it on exiting. So I can do a -rm. I mean, just an rm on. Let's do this whole world. I wonder if I can do multiple at the same time. Can I? What if I do multiples at the same time? Can I do multiple arguments? So can I go like this and then like this? I'm just explaining. I'm just having fun here. Docker container prune. What is that? I never heard of that before. I'm a noob at Docker, but this has been fun. So let's do the PS. I did not know about -a. I'm really loving -a. So that means that there's actually stuff around there. Can I re-exec and call that gets rid of all the ones not running? Really? Man, you guys are really good at this stuff. Thank you for being here. Container, Docker container prune. We'll delete, or can I just do prune? I'm a little afraid. What's going to happen? Docker container prune. all stopped containers. Wow, that's like the rm-rf of the Docker world. It's like, be careful with that command. I don't know if I should write that one down. System prune or container prune. System prune. There's a system prune. Okay. Today I learned there's a system prune. Than what we used to do. Yeah. So, my experience with Docker containers is very limited. But I do love it for one specific thing, and I want to show you what that is, particularly for education. Okay. So, let's say you want to practice setting up secure shell. You just want you just want to set up your own test situation. If you're an autodidact, you should be setting up ways to test yourself all the time. So you set up a learning plan. You say, I want to learn how to activate secure shell server on a system. Okay, so there's something you need to do, right? Well, here's what you can do. So you can go ahead and say, I'm going to start with an Ubuntu server, and because these are minimal systems, they don't have anything on them, and I mean anything. They don't have man pages or anything. So it's a really, really great way to learn. So you can do this. You can say, without having to deal with the VM or anything, you can do docker run-it-d, we'll call it, I'm going to say it, my SSH practice. Okay, SSH practice, then what? We want an Ubuntu server, and we want to run bash. Okay, and by the way, we want to be able to take notes, and so this is something extra. If you do this, be really careful though. So I'm actually going to mount a volume. -v means mount a volume, and I'm going to mount home rwx rob to home rwx rob. Okay, now why would I do that? So I'm going to go ahead and start up a new container. And what's going on? Did I have a problem here? Did I get something wrong? What did I get wrong, guys? Did I get something wrong? Let's see. Docker-PSA. Oh, dope. PS-A. You're going to do SSH, you need port 22 as well. Actually, you don't need it. I was able to do that. You're talking about making it. No, I don't need it because I'm not going to be forwarding the port. I'm not binding the ports. But thank you for that tip. That is a really good tip. I actually don't want to do that because I don't want to make my system exposed. I'm actually going to do it so that I'm going to connect from my internal host system to the Docker system. If that makes sense. So there's my Ubuntu system. It's up. It's there. It's running bash. I don't think it stopped. Oh, did I forget D? I did forget D. Okay. Oh, so D daemonized it. Okay. So now I have to connect to it. So docker exec -it, and now I can just use the name SSH practice. I got to tell you, this has been. I really liked doing this. Wait, what's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? Let's see. Bash. Give it a command. Wait. Oh, duh. Thanks, guys. I'm like flying. You guys are covering for me. You have to give it a command, and this is something I always forget. You can set a default command, but I need to give it the command. So this says execute, connect to this container and run bash in it. And so this is going to run bash, and I get this boring prompt, right? Well, now, so here again, so this is where the value starts. And so for the next few minutes is where I find the value of Docker is really great over VM. So this is already mounted. I can go cd into home, and I can ls. You can't see it very well because my colors aren't very good. But if you cd into rwx rob, hey, look, there's all my files from my desktop, but I'm in my container. It's because I told my container about the resources I wanted to use. And as you know, somebody mentioned, I could tell I want a port or a display or anything. But in this case, I just wanted one directory, and that's it. And I'm taking a little gamble here because thank God my stuff's all backed up. But this Ubuntu system in Docker now knows it shares my home directory, which is cool that it's Ubuntu. But check what I can do now. So now I can do a user add. Okay, I'm not doing add user, and there's a difference. Okay, just make sure you know the difference. I'm going to do a user add, and I don't remember the switches for I think -H is no way. I'm not using -L to control to clear the screen. That's stupid. That only works in Emacs mode, and if you're using Emacs mode, then I don't need to talk to you anymore. Love you. Control is a dumb thing to do. No one should do it. Okay, because it doesn't work in VI mode, which you should be using. If you don't know why, you need to research why. Okay, so user add is, we're going to go ahead and do user add, and I'm going to just add my RWX account. Again, none of this stuff is going to be remembered after the system stops. So again, this is practice because you have to redo it all the time. So then I have a user. Now, if you look in Etsy password, again, more practice, right? Oh, I don't even have a VI on here, by the way. There's no VI on here. So I have to do apt install Vim. And you remember that stuff we were talking about using the basic editor that comes with the system? Yeah, well, oh wait, why doesn't it work? Again, educational experiences, guys. There's no Vim either. So this is, yeah, we forgot. Good. That's what I was just going to say. You guys, there is a network. Watch. Actually, there's no ping. There's no ping on here. So what I'm trying to tell you is what is annoying to most people is actually spectacularly great for you if you're learning, because these things don't come with anything. You have to configure them, and it's not like a full-blown vanilla Arch build. It's like anytime you want, you can go sample how to do something. So there is networking, but there is no ping command. You have to install it. So watch. So let's practice. The first thing you can do before you can install anything is you have to do I'm already root, so I don't need sudo. So you have to do an apt update, and this is a Debian thing. Anything that's a Debian or any distro after Debian has to be. You have to run update on the thing the very first time you come to. Now, if you really wanted to, you could do sudo apt upgrade right now and install all the extra stuff. Yes, so they're saying it depends on the Docker base. This Docker base, this particular Ubuntu base, doesn't have anything extra on it, which I really love. So it doesn't clear a batch screen. Control L does not clear a batch screen. That is false information. Okay, so if you go to okay, so now I have all of the stuff that is already there. It's still listing it in the same colors, but now I should be able to install Vim. So apt install Vim. If I really wanted to, I could do NVI instead. Let's try out NVI and see how well it does. So I'm going to install NVI in this entire system. Why? Because I want to sample what it's like to be on a system that doesn't have Vim. It only has VI, and that's it. Ooh, I didn't like that though. Why didn't it like it? Oh, because man pages don't exist. That's fine. So, but now I think we have VI. Let's see, VI, Etsy password. I think we have it. Yep, we do. We have VI. So I have NVI. NVI is a 100% compatible VI with the original, including its bugs. So if you want a true VI experience and see why all those Vimisms are bad for you, go for it and try it out this way. This is one way to test it without a lot of impact. Oh, binsh is my default shell. That sucks. Why did it do that? Because I did user add. Yes, yet another thing that I get to practice. So I can change it with VI. And so I'm going to put bash here, bin bash instead. And now I can actually change over to the user RWX Rob and see what's up. So, hey, look at that. I got my colors back. Why? Because it's mounted on the other one. And is a yeah, so this my point, the biggest educational point is usually you might want to try different things. So a really good example of that is Vim and VI and Emacs and these editors. Docker is spectacularly awesome for trying a system out that only has VI on it. In order for you to emulate that kind of situation, how would you do it? You can't, if you install VI and NVI, one of them is going to step on the other one, and you don't want to mess with your system. So this is a really great way to practice this kind of things and swim on Kubernetes. Yes. So I mean, this is my entire environment now loaded here. I can actually edit files. So let's say I learned some things here. I can actually take notes just like I could any other time using VI. I can take notes on this system, and then I can also I can also, what else can I do? I can play over here. There's no SSH, but if there, okay, so check this. So if I go over to a new system, and I do, I'm going to have to do soccer. This is a second. Sudo su dash. I know this is stupid, but this is going to get me my Docker. I didn't reboot. I didn't reconnect, so I have to do this temporarily to get my Docker stuff. Okay, so check it. So if I do Docker, inspect, okay, and I'm going to inspect my SSH, what did I call it? Practice. Ooh, tab completion. That's cool. Then I can do this. So then I have Look at this. There is my IP. So I didn't need, so now I can SSH into this system, or can I, right? Can I check that the system is here? That IP number, we talked about IPs the other day. That IP number is here. And it's, I can ping it. Man, look at that ping time. You guys remember like 88 was like, this is like an internal, yeah. So basically that's there. We can even nmap the thing. Should we nmap it? Let's see what's on it. So it has no ports. There's no ports on it at all. Give you the ping times. Here you go. Here's the ping times to Google's DNS servers, which is the fastest response in the world, supposedly, depending on where you are. And so really the fastest you're ever going to get is down around 28. I've never seen a ping time faster than 28 to an external internet resource. So that's 28 milliseconds. So you're talking about pinging a computer that's running inside of your computer as a container. And it's still there in the other window. And this is, again, why you should use tmux, right? Because you can go back and forth between two. So there's no SSH on this thing. I can't SSH to it. So this is another example of a way I can practice setting things up. Yeah, that's a pretty fast ping. So let's go ahead and do that. You got 17 milliseconds? You dog. You dog. Both of you suck. You must be on Backbone someplace. Or you got fiber. Really? I hate you. Oh, rub it in. Just rub it in, okay? I'm happy I have like 100 megabit, 200 megabit. Yeah, you people in other countries besides America don't get to talk. I live in a third world country. It's called America. Oh, that's some good fun. All right, so let's try this. Let's like try to install. I know it's true. We're like bottom of the barrel on education and a bunch of other things. No, social service, whatever. We're not going to talk politics right now. We're just going to talk about ping times. Keep it fun, right? Keep it light. But I am near multiple backbones. Okay, well there you go. So here's the thing. So let's this is why I love this so much. I get so excited about Docker because I can instantly go try anything I want. So someone says NeoVim, you should use NeoVim. It's better than all the other ones. Okay, I don't want to install it. I don't want to install NeoVim on my main system, but I can fire up an Ubuntu thing and do a few, do a little thing, and I can install NeoVim over here and use it to my heart's content and try to see and get it all to work. And then I can sample something else. It is so totally cool for that. Yeah, Tanya, go ahead and take care. We'll see you next time. So, but how can I run SSH over here? There is no SSH. You know what else there isn't? There's no systemctl. Yeah, how about them apples? So all you systemd haters, guess what? It doesn't come on the default Ubuntu image. Nope. You have to use service, which is what I grew up on and which will be on the test if you take a test about this. You'll have to know how to use service, and you'll have to know, actually, I grew up on inetd, which was completely a different thing. So you have to know about service, but the Vim installation is gone if you stop the container. Yes, it is. If I stop the container, my Vim installation, everything on this thing goes away. And that's really important. If I was doing this with a virtual machine, I would save a snapshot and it would still be there. We're going to do virtual machines after the next break. We're going to do a virtual machine and show you the differences. But if you're just trying something out just for size and you just want to test it really quickly, a Docker container is fantastically awesome. Docker commit, what is that? Tell me about Docker commit. I don't know about Docker commit. Does that force it to be, does that cache it? You can save it? See, I didn't know this. Today I learned you can save it. If you can save it, then Docker is my new favorite tool, period. That saves the file system. Where does it save the file system? I'm a little scared of that. It's not gonna hurt I'm afraid. I don't understand like everybody else. It saves a new image layer? Are you kidding me? So it's basically snapshotting it also? Why have I not been using Docker for the last 10 years? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. You're like, these guys are so dumb. They don't know their Docker. You're right. We don't know. Tell us. You cannot stop it. It stays? Wow. So wait. So you're saying after I installed, I installed NVim, right? I'm going to test your hypothesis here just to prove this is true. If what you're saying is true, I don't ever want to use a virtual machine again. Like ever. Not even for my hacking. For my CTF hacking, I'll just use Docker. say you should use Podman though. Okay, I should use Podman. I should learn what Podman is. Docker has snapshots. I know. I was going to say I didn't know Docker had snapshots, and you're telling me that it does. So I want to spend my last 3 minutes figuring that out. But as you can see, I've got stuff to learn too. But even if you don't have that, so I only have 3 minutes. You want to try to do the snapshot thing? Let's try that, because that means anything that you save, you could build your own images and stuff. So I don't know what to do. I am out of my league here. So what am I doing? Docker commit. I'm just guessing. I'm totally guessing. Hey, look, I pushed tab and it worked. Don't you love tab? Don't you love tab? Seriously. Okay, so here I have this one running over here still. I'm gonna try to commit a running Docker container, and so we're gonna, tab is my favorite color. It actually pretty damn good. Docker container commit container image, my new image. Okay, SSH practice 1. You mean to tell me that I can save snapshots with Docker with different stages of evolution of my container? Oh my God! Do you have any idea how valuable that is for education? Do you have any idea how valuable that is for education? That means you can lock down a system at each stage during the development process. Yeah, this is my best new toy I've ever found, because this means that I can actually make images that have all the pieces in place and use that as the answer key. So like I can give people assignments and say, you need to make this to do this and this and this. Yeah, 2013. You know what? Come on, give me a break. I haven't been playing around with Docker. I've been playing around with, low-level C and Go programming. So I haven't been playing around with Docker for those kind of things. You can't keep up on everything. There's like so many things. Yeah, I mean, I knew, but I didn't know that you could actually, save a container with Docker. That is new information to me. And yeah, I do love Docker. And you know what? I've always felt like I might be called to like it a little bit, but I was like, I didn't want to jump in because I knew if I got sucked into the Docker thing, I was going to be like totally gone. So just got my MVP for coding. Oh, nice. I feel like a boomer now. Well, not a boomer. Gen X all the way. Okay, boomer. Gen X. Dude, I'm sorry. This is, I did not know you could do snapshots until today, and you saw it here. It's probably going to get highlighted. And now I want to use my whole break just playing with it. And so, oh yeah. Well, the problem is you're going to see me playing with it. This is hands down the best way. I mean, this is obviously why Replit is built on containers. You guys know this, right? So Replit is built on containers. So many educational systems are built on containers that talk to the web. What I don't see a lot of, though, in fact, I don't know of anything that is doing educational content based on command line containers. So you can bet that before I die, there's going to be, I already created a Skillbot system, and there's going to be a system that's going to hit Control J. Why should I hit Control J? I don't want to hit Control J. Oh, much better than Linux. Glad it's Mac OS, much better than Linux. Mac OS is not better than Linux. This is such a false statement. All right, so here we go. So let's do, I want to see now what that means if I like do a Docker PS. I'm using my break time for this. So if you guys don't have to stay around, I'm playing, as you said, I'm playing with my new toy in my break time. But when we come back, we're going to go back to virtual machines. Docker images, that one I knew. Believe it or not, that one I did know. So SSH practice 1, we have a new practice 1. It is it running though? Oh, look, it's bigger in size. This is interesting. You guys see this? Look, it increased in size. Because of that image, better than Mac OS, equals new line. Oh gosh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so we're gonna try out more or not. I'm playing with Docker for the next 10 minutes during my break, and then we're gonna do nothing but virtual machines. We're gonna do VirtualBox, and we're gonna install Pop OS. Using a VirtualBox. If you know how to do that, if you've already done it, then you don't need to stick around. However, if you have not started the downloads, people, I'm going to go start my download right now. Go to Pop! OS or whichever one you want, and you need to start downloading the software. Okay, so you need to download the Pop! OS software. And I actually have this someplace already. Make sure when you download it that you download the one for your system, whether you have Intel or NVIDIA. You should know that. Docker yoga today after class instead of going outside. No. I'm doing my yoga. So here we go. Streamlining. So this is the Pop! OS. This is the one we're going to install together as a virtual machine in 15 minutes. There is some problems here though. One of them is I need to find my images. I'm pretty sure I have my image already downloaded, so I don't need to go download it again. But you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to download it again just to be sure. So yeah, and again, I'm during my break. So 10 minutes after, so like 1:10, we'll be back and we'll be doing the last segment, which is how to get virtual machines running using VirtualBox. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. I'm running NVIDIA, so I'm going to download NVIDIA. I'm going to see how long this is going to take me to download. Yeah, so you probably want to start your download if you haven't done it already. I'm going to do it now because I don't want to wait around during the stream, during our on time. So go ahead and get that downloading. VirtualBox actually takes a little while to download itself, and you'll need to go ahead and install that software. So you'll need to install VirtualBox, which is its own thing. VirtualBox, I'm pretty sure it's the first hit. And so there you go, virtualbox.org. You download this for your operating system. And yes, it's an Oracle product. They bought VirtualBox some time ago. And just like everything, they kill it. Anything that they buy or touch. I do not like Oracle. I do not like that company. Let's see. Fire up a browser with Docker to protect my doggy website. My doji, maybe. What's the purpose of a full distro in a container? Isn't that against the point of containers in the first place? Yeah. I think it's a fair statement. In my case, it's because I want to run a full distro as an application that kind of goes away. So it's definitely on the higher end. And the reason I really like them is because they have removed all of the extra stuff, including man pages. And so that is a very good learning opportunity for you to build stuff. In fact, if you were to download, I think it's fair to say that if you were to download, Alpine is actually a Docker-based one. Rancher OS is another one. These are operating systems that are built on containers. And let's see, is it not a full distro in there? It is the most basic version of it, right? And so that's why I like it. In fact, the one that makes no sense to me is Kali. So I downloaded the Kali Linux image, and I was like, none of the things that Kali is used for are here, like not even Nmap. So it's like, why would you download an image of Kali Linux? That doesn't make any sense at all, because I mean, I'm sorry, a container image of Kali Linux, because the whole value proposition is that it comes with all, the kitchen sink included for security. Well, so that was the thing that I just could not understand. But if I wanted to install Arch, rather than make a vanilla Arch, maybe I'm going to make an Arch and I'm going to freeze it. You know why I like that? Because then I can snap it back anytime I want to. So that if I'm using that VM perhaps with a VPN inside of it, if anything gets compromised, I just snap it back. And that's the point of a virtual machine. Up to now, I thought virtual machines were the only things that could do that, and now I'm finding out that you can just save a new image, which is super awesome. Nothing is hardly on the I could not find anything on it. So yeah, this is like super fun stuff for me. Let me see where my download is at. Yeah, we got Pop! OS downloaded. Good. That's good to go. Good to do. I'll review this in a second here, but I want to play with these containers a little bit more. Yes, this is like new toy alert. This is like, I've been meaning to get deep into Docker since 2013 when they were around. I knew about them when I started my company, and I knew that it was nothing that I could benefit from immediately to help the people that I was helping learn at the time were really young. And so I kept putting it off because there's only so many hours in the day, people. Yes. I know you guys. I knew somebody was going to mention KVM and QEMU. We talked about them, and we are not going to do QEMU and KVM, mostly because people that generally use a virtual machine in my stream don't already have Linux. Unless you're about to tell me that QEMU and KVM run on Windows or Mac, then the point of using them is not as. I do want to learn it. I want to learn it. I want to be able to learn how to do virtualization on a Linux system, but I don't personally believe QEMU and KVM belong in a beginner boost about how to get started. That applies across the board. And I think VirtualBox is using QEMU in the background. I don't know that. That's the reason. So again, we're speaking to an audience of people who might be using Macs or Windows, and maybe this is their first Linux experience ever. So we don't. I don't want to throw QEMU and KVM at them. So otherwise, yeah, I think for the intermediates and advanced, I actually thought about up until I'm not going to lie. Up until 4 days ago, I wasn't even going to talk about Docker. I thought Docker was too advanced of a topic, and I think at this point it's fair to say if we have any beginners out there who disagree, this Docker stuff is pretty heavy, but it's not any heavier than setting up SSH keys. So I'm pleasantly surprised. That's why you're finding so much excitement in my voice right now. I'm actually really excited that Docker is attainable for beginners, but not only that, but that Docker can be used as an educational tool for beginners, and that just absolutely blows my mind. But who showed me how to do who showed me how to do Docker commit? Who gets the credit for that? Who had the like sense of presence to like tell me? Was it okay? Well, we need to VIP you then. So, anybody who tells me something that's like spectacularly huge gets VIP, because how much am I learning on this stream? I'm learning more. I'm an experienced Linux administrator, technologist. I had a very good career in it, and to this day, I continue to learn new things all the time because there's so much stuff to learn. And the really great thing about the stream is that we have people who are experts in one part of that come together. Somebody who uses Docker every day, like you guys, and you can share with the rest of us who don't. And maybe you're not coding in Golang every day. And I say thanks for the sub. But so maybe you're not coding in Golang every day, right? Or maybe you haven't done some like serious high level architectural design or written your own protocols. These are things that I have deep experience in, so I can bring my experience and share it with you, and then other people can come. I was actually watching a stream the other day. What's this? I forget his name. He was doing NIM. I was watching the NIM coder, disruptive or something like that, and you should see the coding he's doing in NIM. And we rated him yesterday, and I blew my whole hour where I should have been doing yoga just watching him code in NIM, which is this really weird language. I think NIM takes the cake for the weirdest language I have ever seen. It is so crazy and it's sort of awesome at the same time. It is really awesome, but it blows. Disruptic, yeah, but it has so many problems for a beginner that I would never suggest. It's basically, I mean, the point I'm just trying to make is that this is one of these things that I've experienced that I would never have even known about without Twitch. NIM is win upside down. Ooh, I mean, it's got significant white space. It looks like Python. The strangest thing, it is the only language I have ever seen that allows you to use any form of identifier that you want. So, and they're all the same thing underneath, the same symbol underneath. You can have uppercase, you can have an underscore in there, you can put a dash in it if you want, you can make it camel case. It doesn't care. It lets you name things whatever you want, and they're all the same name. So if you have the variation on the name all over the place in the code, the thing that allows that is you can actually change the name of a thing and name it completely differently later, and it's referring to the same symbol. I still don't know what I think of that. My head is like exploding. I'm like, is that good or is that terrible. It's one of the two, because the idea of being able to have an infinite number of identifiers. Okay, rabbit hole. Yes. But zeros, it is kind of like rabbit hole time. So I'm okay. But yeah, thank you for the warning. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, it's just super interesting. So anyway, so systemctl is not found. So you have to use service, right? So service sshd start. Oh, no services. Let's see which ones we have over here. Service, service, status all. I love this because this is what I used for so long. Look at those are the only running services on this process. We're still on break. We're on break for 2 more minutes until 1:10. Yeah, exactly. The whole idea of clean code on the NIM thing. Right, and yet it's sort of modeled off Python, but closer to C. It converts all the code to C and then compiles it. HTML before JavaScript. Yes, we made that decision on a stream. The reason for that is because we wanted people to jump right into to coding, but we might be able to change that back. No, I usually teach HTML before JavaScript, but we switched that because I didn't want people to have Bash be their only first language. And so then but now that I put some Go in there so they get exposure to a real language, doing HTML after that might make sense. However, I'm going to keep JavaScript first. And the reason for that is that the way Eloquent JavaScript teaches it is in a way that's not dependent on HTML. And just as a pure language. In fact, that'll be the first actual language that we go through completely from beginning to end in depth. Like people will learn, variables and all that. And then it does seem kind of upside down. I won't lie. I teach people HTML first for years. So it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. But I do like the fact that when we get to the section in Eloquent JavaScript that starts talking about Canvas and we make a game and stuff, that it will introduce HTML in a minimal way and say, oh yeah, here's the DOM. And you'll be like, so you'll actually be learning HTML and then you'll be learning the DOM and then HTML. And so I want to experiment a little bit with that order and see how that goes. No, we're not talking about NIM. NIM can be written into anything if you wanted to. By brushing up on my JavaScript, but my experience in web design is that the order. Yeah, most web designers have that traditional order, and I don't have a problem with that. I kind of want to keep the momentum going in terms of programming, though, if that makes sense. And so, so that when we're still thinking in the logical programming sense, not the, the declarative programming sense of like HTML. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment though. I've never done that. I've never taught it after that. Let's see. Also, yes, it's 13:10. Let's actually do the other thing. So I didn't get my container playtime, but I will come back because it's still there and it ain't going anywhere. So let's go back. And keep my tmux running here. All right, so step 1, install virtual machine. VirtualBox. You should have VirtualBox installed. If you don't have VirtualBox installed, I don't know what to tell you. You just have to get it installed, and then you should already have downloaded. So let's go back. Let me go see if I can pull up the schedule again. So. This is actually going to take far less time than I believe that I've allocated for this. This is actually going to go very, very quickly. And that's fine. So go to the README here. All right. So we did our Linux Docker containers. We're now on to virtual machine. Yes, get VirtualBox on Windows. That's a good idea. And so download and install VirtualBox. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. That's pretty basic. Go find it, go download it, go install it. I have 10-year-olds who can do it, no problem. You should be fine. Download and install PopOS. Okay, that's different. You need to download the PopOS for the biggest part about this that people get tripped up on is they don't know what video card they have. I kid you not. I've had multiple people ask, I don't know what video card I have. And I mean, in a couple cases, I had people didn't know what operating system they had. I had one parent. This is a funny side story. I had one parent who I said, well, okay, they were signing up their son or daughter. And I mean, the kid was like 9 or 10. I mean, he was really young. And And I said, well, I don't know. I said, he goes, well, what do we need at home? I said, well, it depends. What, do you have a computer at home? Yes. He goes, well, what kind of computer do you have at home? Is it a Mac or Windows? And she goes, and she asked her 10-year-old son whether they had a Mac or a Windows computer. She didn't know. And that is a true story that actually happened. And I had to keep it together because I was like, yeah. So, BIOS virtualization issue. Do we want to get into that? She wasn't actually. She was not a boomer. She was a good, I would say a good 15 years younger than me. I'm not kidding. She was about 15 years younger than me. And she knew what her phone was, but she did not know what computer they had. Now that really shocked me actually, because I didn't think you would run into that. I am not a boomer. Okay, boomer, not a boomer. I'm Gen X. Stop calling me a boomer. There's a very tiny little portion of us that are getting mushed into the boomers. It is old. Yes, I'm old. I'm 52. I won't deny it. Yeah. Let's fight. I'm not a Zoomer either. See, how do you say that? Because it gets related to Zoom. Okay, we're down a path here. All right, so get Pop! OS installed, downloaded. Okay, and if you have NVIDIA, get NVIDIA. If you don't, you have AMD, Intel, get that. If you don't know that, go do a search on the internet and say, how do I tell what graphics card I have? Okay. Doomer. I actually like Doomer because we like to watch the world burn. That's what they call us. Yeah, that's from a Saturday Night Live skit. Yep, Gen X just likes to watch the world burn. All my students call me a boomer every now and again. Seriously? Back on topic. If you have a Docker for Windows installed, it's going to cause issues with VirtualBox. Why would it? Would it? If it does, that's a good warning from Borkstick. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, boomer is there. Yeah. That's going to be, yeah. Really? That seems rather odd. Docker on Windows uses VBox? What the heck? Docker on Windows uses, today I learned something new. It's just an animated background, Espen. Cause Hyper-V? Huh. That's interesting. Wait. Let me make sure I got this right, because this is important information for everybody to learn. This is why I love the community is all here together. I just heard somebody say, who knows what they're talking about, that you cannot run Docker and VirtualBox on the same Windows computer. Does that mean that they can't be installed together, or does that mean they can't be running at the same time? Does anybody know? Because this is important information to capture. The right are VBox and Docker. Really? Can you install them but running indifferent? Let's see. I think running. I had the issue with macros. You need to turn off Hyper-V and reboot the machine. That's to get by one of the problems. I had that issue with macOS, but swapped between them as a pain. Win 10 uses Hyper-V as a recent development which has issues. I cannot run VMware with Docker even. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I did not know that. I had no idea going into this. Obviously, that is a burden. So can someone clarify the thing with needing Windows Professional? Let's talk about that too. Does anybody know if this is addressed with the new Windows coming out with WSL2? I imagine it would be. Although I gotta say, with WSL2, well, no. WSL2 is not Docker because it's not temporary. It's like there all the time. Yeah. Yes, it's address. I'm using it right now. Okay. Windows people, once WSL2 is out, you can use Docker and VirtualBox as Hyper-V isn't needed anymore. Interesting. Once again, we further look forward to the next iteration of Windows. Please provide links to this information, and I will put them in the docs that we have here for the community. And thank you so much for this clarification. So WSL2 uses Hyper-V as well. Well, how can WSL2 use Hyper-V And wait, so let me just come back here. You cannot run them at the same time, but it's okay for them to be on the same system. Is this okay? Here we go. There's a nice link. Docker in WSL. Let's try this one here. Last June, the Docker team announced that it will be investing in getting Docker running into the Windows subsystem for Linux. All this was made possible with the recent changes to the architecture of WSL to run in a lightweight VM, which we talked about in earlier blog posts of WSL2. Hopefully some of this makes more sense to you beginners. This would be, absolutely dense and unintelligible to a lot of beginners without having at least a conversation about what these terms mean. Since this announcement, the Docker team has released a technical preview of Docker that includes support for running with WSL2. I imagine that means running a Docker VM or something. Yeah. And remember we talked about the apartment building versus the house. So the apartment building still has, a virtual machine engine, even though it's got lots of apartments in it. So there's still one there. And what we're talking about here is, since the VirtualBox is like the house, it's a virtual machine, it's like you can't have a house on the same piece of land as the apartment building because they're both using the same land. And Hyper-V is the land, if I were going to really stretch for a comparison. And so you have to have either one or the other. And that's what they're talking about. So here, why can't VirtualBox or VMware run with Hyper-V enabled on Windows 10? When Hyper-V is enabled, it gets priority for the virtualization's hardware assist. So Hyper-V, by the way, was invented by IBM. And if you want to read an interesting article about that, that's in the rwx.gg/virtualization or /virt. And you can read about that there. But Hyper-V is the thing that runs right on top of the hardware. So to get into this, you kind of have to know how things boot up on a computer when it starts. You have the BIOS, which is just the basic system that's soldered and is burned into the chip on the computer. That's what your blue screen is when you're changing your boot order and you're overclocking and all that. And then that boots into another system. And the Hyper-V system is right in between there and all the other stuff on top of that. And if you don't have Hyper-V activated, it can't do some of the virtualizations. That's what people are saying here. When Hyper-V is enabled, it gets priority for the virtualizations. Hardware assists, so the hardware can't interact with the type 2s. That's fascinating stuff. So Docker for Windows technical preview plus WSL2 means you can run Docker containers in Docker for Windows and also manage them from within WSL2. Further down a solution I had to use for now. So man, there's lots of links here. I will be putting these links out on the site under virtualization. So we have here another Hub Docker source for Docker Hub desktop needing Win 10 Pro. It needs apparently to use Docker. Okay. By the way, you can get Windows 10 Pro. I wonder if you can run it. I wonder if you can run it under a virtual. Can you run Docker under a Windows 10 Pro VM? There's an inception moment. Running Docker on, of course you could. It seems to make sense, but so yeah, if you really want that level, you can, because you can download Windows 10 Pro for free and try it out in a virtual machine. In fact, I'm running Windows 10 under a virtual machine just to practice using WSL2. Hey Slayer, and so that's one of the things. Running Docker in Ubuntu server. I'm running. Yeah. Okay. So this is all very fascinating. What I'm afraid of, though, let me just make sure this isn't true. As we go forward and show people how to set up VirtualBox and Pop! OS, I want to know this answer very definitively. Has installing Docker prevented them from installing VirtualBox in any way? It sounds like the answer is no to that. But if Docker is running in any way, that VirtualBox would not be able to run, and we would potentially get an error saying you can't do it. Which is really, really disappointing, actually. I was hoping that they would be compatible. What I did in the past is use this. No, just disable Hyper-V and reboot. Yeah, you're talking to beginners, ACUD. Just rebooting and disabling Hyper-V all by itself is a big deal. By the way, rebooting and doing all of this BIOS stuff, tomorrow we're going to talk about that during Hardware Day, how to get Linux on hardware. We're going to go a lot into the BIOS stuff. I feel bad that I don't have set up a means of doing this. Someday I want to be able to stream another machine that's booting, so we can take a lot of pictures of what it means to deal with the BIOS or the thing that's booting you up. But that's another topic for tomorrow. But I actually, and tomorrow, if everybody wants to, I would really love people to take pictures of their BIOS and send them to me so that we can get a bunch of samples of what people's BIOS looks like in different ways and how to do that. Okay, so this link is the one about how to get around the Hyper-V VirtualBox issue. Switch easily between VirtualBox and Hyper-V with BCB edit boot entry in Windows 8.1. I've been using this is not beginner stuff though, guys. So I want to keep it with beginner stuff. However, I also use Hyper-V when developing for Windows Phone. Some sites say so. First of all, use VirtualBox. Look, okay, so let's cut to the chase here for the beginners. Again, beginners are king today, and beginners just need to know what should I do. And in this case, if you have Windows, we've already talked about the best way for you to get a Linux terminal is to use WSL, and that is documented. If you don't know, I've already documented this, and I'm going to stick by that recommendation despite all of these other things. Okay, so if you're running Windows 10 today, the single fastest, best way for you to get Linux on a terminal so you can do everything else in the boost is what we talked about last week, and that is documented here. So I'm going to come back and repeat this myself on this because I don't want you to think you have to do any of the stuff we're about to talk about with virtual machines. You just need to eventually get your head around what's going on. And the reason there's so much confusion, so let's just pause right there. So this is all you need to do the boost. You just have to have WSL running under Windows, and this is not WSL 2, unfortunately. This is the only one that's available for the mainstream right now, and it's slower, it's buggier, it's quirkier. And okay, pause. So we'll just talk about that. So if you're a beginner, that's what you need. Okay, so I don't want any of this other conversation to freak you out, because again, this is for you. Now, having said that, I'm going to tell you what everybody's talking about in general. So Windows is about to do a massive thing, and we talked about it briefly on the first day of this week. Windows is about to put Linux on its operating system by default. So when you get the next version of Windows, you will get Linux. And all you have to do is go to the store and get whatever version of Linux that they have in the store, and you've got it. And that is coming. And yeah, WSL and WSL2. And so that is really the only thing you need to know if you're planning on keeping Windows as your primary operating system. Okay. All of this other talk, by the way, WSL2 is going to be out like soon. Like they just postponed it. It was in the end of, I think Vera said it was the end of March. No, the end of May, but now we're past it. Linux is coming to a store near you. So having said all of that, that is your single best way. And I still maintain, to run Linux on Windows, particularly because WSL2 is just building on the success of WSL, and therefore will seem familiar to you. So if you won't be anything new to do. But this conversation today about containers and virtualization, these are definitely other ways to run Linux. And you saw how excited I got about Docker, because I can run my own little Linux version inside of my other Linux version to test things out and stuff. And that's the benefit. Now, if you're running WSL2, there is, as far as I know, there is no conflict. In fact, I know for sure there's not, because there's 3 kids doing it. So you can do the WSL thing that I talked about, and then you can also install VirtualBox and put Pop! OS into that VirtualBox. Okay, so those 2 things I know are compatible. The new information that I'm freaking out on is that Docker cannot be installed and run on a system at the same time as VirtualBox. That is new information to me today. And so, but you don't need to worry, because you're either using WSL2, WSL, or you're using a virtual machine running Pop! OS or something like that. And if you're doing one of those two things, or those two things together, you won't have a problem. If you decide to throw Docker onto your Windows machine, sounds like you can't do that right now, it's just unfortunate, but it's not horrible, because you can accomplish the same thing. And he will tell you, of course. So yeah, or you can get rid of everything on your hardware and just install Linux. That is not an option for a lot of people who need Windows for work, or who want Windows for gaming performance, which no one will argue is slower on Linux. People will take me to task over that, but I'm telling you, it's still slower and it's harder to set up. So just stick with your Windows box for gaming. So let's continue the last half hour today, proceeding as if you didn't know about this big Docker controversy about it not working. Let's see, question, is there a dependency for Docker on Windows to enable Hyper-V feature in Windows? Sounds like yes. I prefer Kali over Arch. You can do that all from a VirtualBox. I'm running Linux Mint on hardware, and FreeBSD and Debian SID VMs. Nice. Yeah, you can definitely do that. Linux is not friendly with most gaming peripherals. This is true. Parrot OS, yes. Okay, Pop! OS ISO downloaded. Okay, good. So if you have the ISO, so we're going to go through the process of installing Pop! OS into a VirtualBox for the rest of the day, assuming you haven't had any conflicts. I was a little concerned about the Docker thing, because I thought maybe having you install Docker may have prevented you from doing the rest of the stuff we're going to do. And if that's true, I need to know right away, because I want to change the way I teach it, or not teach it, but bring it up, so that we don't have a problem with that. All right. So the first thing you need to do is start up your virtual machine. And I'm going to try I'm going to have to do some extra magic. VirtualBox. So I'm going to start up VirtualBox, and here is what VirtualBox looks like. Nothing really fancy here. You can't really see the colors very well. I wonder if that's because of sometimes I wonder if it's pulling the colors from my what's the thing that makes I'm just going to test something really quick. I think that this might be affecting it, but I don't know that for sure. I just possibility. No, I mean, the colors are kind of whack. I'm sorry for that. Don't really have control over that. It probably looks better. You think it's a GTK3 theme? It probably is. Anyway, here we go. So I'm sorry you can't read this very well, but tough. We're just gonna have to do it. And there's no way for me to resize. So anyway, I apologize for that. But you see what I mean? Really, it's not too much going on here. Okay, so here we go. So again, 30 minutes to go. All we really need to do is install Pop! OS. So you should have Pop! OS downloaded. You should have Oracle VM VirtualBox installed, and you should see a screen like this that doesn't have this thing here. So the goal is going to be to get the virtual machine running. And again, the difference between a virtual machine and a Docker container is a virtual machine. It is a virtual machine, all of it. It's like a house, and the container is like an apartment in an apartment building. It's just most of the stuff, but it needs the apartment building plumbing and stuff to work. So, and we're going to click on new to make a new one. And so you can just give it a name. I'm going to say Pop! OS Live. And I'm going to put it in with the rest of my VMs. I actually have a directory where I keep my VMs, but it's in I call it VM machines in my home directory. What type? So Windows, you can install Windows or anything here. I'm going to pick Linux, and then I'm going to pick what version of Linux. Definitely not Oracle Linux. Oh my God. We're going to pick Pop! OS, which is a Ubuntu derivative, which you could find out by going to the chart we talked about on the first day. So we're going to put Ubuntu there, and we're going to hit next, and that's going to ask us what kind of memory we want. So this is where I was talking about this kind of liquid idea of turning up and down your RAM. So this by default gives it 1. I know for a fact that it doesn't do very well with 1 gigabyte. It needs at least 2. And on their site, they talk about it. So I'm going to go get 2048. That's 2 gigabytes. My system has, let's say, 16 gigabytes on it. And just remember, though, that your host system has to share memory with what the system is that you're running. And you can always change your RAM later, so that's not a bad thing. You cannot change your disk space, but you can change your RAM, and you can change the number of CPUs that it gives it. So we're going to start with RAM, and that's the ability to do multiple things at one time. To give an example, if you set that too low, let's say you're trying to compile a paper Minecraft server from scratch, we know for a fact that it requires 2 gigabytes to just compile the thing, because it puts a lot of that code into memory while it's doing the compilation, and it will just fail because it runs out of memory. Running out of memory is one thing that will freeze your computer. Almost always when a computer just totally freezes, it's because it's out of memory. And one way to avoid that is to set up something called swap, but we'll get into that later. Swap is disk space that's kind of a bail for RAM when there's no more RAM left. It's like, well, at least I have this disk space I can pretend is RAM so we don't crash. But swap can be dangerous in the wrong situation. For example, if anytime you have an SSD, you never ever want to use swap because it will burn out your drive. So we're not going to talk about that right now. All you need to know is 2 gigabytes of RAM. So then we click on next. So the hard drive. Okay, so Linux runs great with a small amount of RAM. Let's see. So what kind of virtual hard drive do I want? A virtual hard drive is just a big old file or several files on your file system, and it uses it's kind of like a database would do. It just allocates that disk space and uses it however it wants, and it seeks around all over in there without having it be a specific file. It is pretty cool though that you can actually share these drives across virtual machines. So if you have a virtual hard drive from one VM, you can actually put it over here and mount it on another VM and use it there as well. It's pretty cool. So that's what's going on. As you can say, use an existing virtual hard disk or do another one. We're going to say create a virtual hard disk here. And we are going to give it way more than 10. I don't see where the recommended size. We're going to give it way more than 10. Most people can give it more than 10. 15. I don't see what's going on here. I don't see where my slider is. I think I'm being betrayed by my UI. I think it comes next. I think it's next. Oh yeah, it's asking you what type. So we're just gonna use the standard VirtualBox. If you wanted your VMDK, this would be compatible with VMware as well if you wanted to pick this one. So if you wanted your stuff to be able to do that. We're going to go to next, dynamically allocated. That means it doesn't use it all at one time, and it just makes the file keep growing up to that point. And there it is. Okay, so here is the total space. I have 2 terabytes on this drive. So I have plenty of disk. I have no problem giving it like 20 or 30. I'll just give it 30 for now. This cannot be changed. So better to be on the high side than the low side on this one. It does permanently allocate 30 gigabytes of your hard drive for this purpose alone. So if you don't use it all, that's a lot of wasted space on your chunk out of your hard drive. So maybe don't go overboard, but also know that you can't go back down later. You can go down with RAM and you can do it on the CPUs, but disk space you can't change. So then we're going to click, and it's going to tell you where it's going to create it, and we're going to do create. And if you write to it, yes, it only uses the space if you write to it. That's why we said incremental there. Now we have it over here, and it's like, well, what do you do next? How do I install it? So I know you can't read it very well, but it tells us we got Ubuntu here, what the name of it is. It tells us the things here. You can actually click on these things and change the settings if you want. Some of you can, of course. It tells you what graphics controller it is, the storage. And you see here it says optical drive empty. Now we're not going to stress about that right now. Optical drive is the old school CD drive. So
So all of these virtual machines have a pretend optical drive, a pretend CD drive, and that's important because that's where it's the same thing as if we were to plug in our USB stick to install, which we'll talk about tomorrow. When you're installing a new operating system, you need to boot off of either a CD-ROM or a USB stick that's pretending to be like a CD-ROM. And NAT, we're not going to do bridged. We're going to just keep it at NAT right now, but we will talk about it. Okay, so this is really important though, what they're talking about. So this we're leaving. So this doesn't have a drive in it right now, but we're not going to stress about it because when we go to start it up, it's going to prompt you for it. But if for any reason you skip that step on accident and don't want to throw away your virtual machine or redo it again, then you can click on this and you can actually change it to point to the Pop! OS files so that when it boots up, it sees it there. And we'll talk about that even more tomorrow. But here's your audio. It's passing through the audio devices. It has the network here. Now this is something that it didn't prompt us for that people are mentioning in the chat. Yeah, no, I don't use CDs, but they do. So USB, it's what's the controller, not the actual USB plugged in. And any shared folders, no shared folders. You can actually share folders with your operating system so that you can put things in and transfer it back and forth between your VM. Otherwise, you're stuck doing things like SCP to the system. I don't normally use shared folders, but you definitely can do that. But so the big piece of that they skipped here that I want to talk about is network. Okay, so by default, you'll see that it sets it up in NAT. And what NAT means is network address translation. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but there's lots of ways to configure your network, but there's two basic ways to think of this. All right, so imagine for a second that you had, so your computer is kind of like your home network, and all of your virtual machines are like computers on your home network. They're encapsulated inside, they're inside of your computer. So your computer's network, your computer is the private network, and all of your virtual machines live inside of your computer's network. And nothing outside of your computer can see those machines by default. That is NAT. So you can, the best way to get your head around this is to imagine that your computer itself is like a home that has Wi-Fi, and all of the virtual machines inside of your computer are using the Wi-Fi of that home network. Think of it that way. And how do they do that? They use a technology called NAT, which sends stuff out through your router, just like you do at home. All your computers at home, those computers are not directly accessible by computers outside on the internet. Somebody outside on the internet can't connect to my streaming system directly. They would have to break into my router and get through that and all that jazz. If they did, we'd be all in trouble, right? If people could just see your stuff directly on the internet. And the technology that allows that's called NAT. So network address translation, that's what allows all those packet traffic to do that. We talked about how networks work on Friday of last week, if you want to go back and watch that video. So that's what's going on. Now, these guys are talking about bridged. So you can actually change the setting on your network card, on your network from NAT to bridged. Okay, now what bridged, okay, so bridged is important to understand. Bridged is, okay, so now imagine you have your computer, rather than making this virtual computer, this virtual machine inside of your computer be a part of like this contained network, right? As soon as you do bridged, you're saying, no, I want you to treat this computer just like it's a computer sitting next to this computer. It's a peer computer on the same home network. Okay. And so if you do that, when you switch it to bridged, this virtual machine, as far as your network and every other computer on your home network is concerned, is another computer on that network. And that's what bridged means. Bridged means give this computer an IP number that will work on my home network. That means from my iPad or my laptop or whatever, I can directly connect to. So why does this matter? So let's say you're running a Minecraft server. Okay. If you're running a Minecraft server and you do NAT, and you're trying to test out what it's like to run your own Minecraft server and stuff like that, or you're trying to attack something. So let's say you're trying to make a virtual machine and you're going to use an image called Metasploitable, which is full of holes so you can hack the crap out of it. If you don't put it as bridged, your laptop or your other computer in the same room won't be able to see that computer because it's being protected. It's being protected by the host computer, which is saying, no, you can't talk to that because that's inside of my private network. And that's why you want bridged. So when you set it to bridge, it's as if you said, okay, fine, this computer is in every, way necessary the same thing as if I had just plugged it in or I had connected it to the Wi-Fi at my house. And that way you can do that. NAT is way safer, which is why NAT is the default. NAT is the default of your home. It's the default of these virtual machines. And 9 times out of 10, you don't need more than that. But it's really important that you understand that if you don't change it to bridged, you won't be able to see that computer from another computer. So if that LAN inside LAN, bridge equals new PC on your LAN. Very well said. So, I mean, I've kind of beaten this to pull this whole topic, but this is a very confusing topic for people when they're getting started. I've had people start up servers and try to attack them and I can't see it. And then others like Minecraft server, I can't see it. So if you want to make it that, you would put bridged. In my case, also NAT saves on address allocation, which is a problem. Yeah, and that address allocation is a problem if you're on a system that's only got like 192 addresses, because there's only 255 for your entire home network. So, and then you would be surprised how many devices are in most people's home networks right now. That's going to be an issue someday. So most home Wi-Fi routers only have a maximum of 255 or 54 devices on the network at the same time by default. They have to be changed and reconfigured to allow more than that. I don't know. We'll see about that. With IPv6, yes, but I don't know. Just got a job. Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Thanks, Blackbeard. Good job for you. Multiple router solve. I mean, yeah. But my point is that most old home routers are not set up to allow you to do something like that. If you want to do something like VulnHub, you should be bridged so your VMs can see each other. This is a good point, Zeros. Good job. So you would do bridge, but I'm just going to keep it as the default of NAT. Okay, let's actually do the installation since we only have 15 minutes left. It's really easy stuff. There's a couple gotchas here, specifically with Pop! OS. That are VirtualBox specific, so I'll take you through that and then we'll go. So next, let's install the operating system. So let's go ahead and start this thing. So we're going to click on start and that will fire it up, and it says please select. This is really important that you stop right here and you make sure to do the right thing. If you miss this step, it's super duper hard to recreate what's needed by mounting the ISO and having it boot first. So please pause when it says select startup disk and make sure you do this right. So get a virtual optical disk file or physical optical drive and have it start. So I found the Pop! OS ISO CD images. They used to come from CDs. This is where they come from. So you'll see extensions that are ISO, IMG, DMG if it's Mac. So those are the extensions. You're going to look for that extension, Pop! OS, which it found for me. You might have to go dig around for it in your downloads directory, but you're going to find that ISO and then you're going to click start. And then when you start it, it's telling you about auto capture, and it's messing with your screen and all kinds of fun things. So yeah. So here we go. It's starting up. It's doing things. We're like, let's stop doing stuff. It's giving you warnings about the mouse because it's, as I said, it's trying to share your mouse between here. And here we go. Here's our full-blown Pop! OS. Now, obviously, you can see the difference right away between this and Docker, right? So this is as if you were looking at a screen. It's a virtual screen right here. And so this is, even though it might be a little slower and more sluggish, this is a true Linux experience for people who want to try different distros. However, there are some downsides. So for example, when you're trying to squeeze the screen in here, you can't see stuff. So there are actually a lot of things you're not able to see in this Pop! OS. Is probably my biggest annoyance about Pop! OS in general, is that there is, in fact, if anybody out there knows how to easily fix this right away without using VM tools, or the tools installation, there is a button down here that you cannot see that needs to be clicked on. And you can't click on the button because it's way down here. And I have tried so many different ways to get that button to show, but so people are like, I can't select it because the button's not showing down here, and you can't resize this right away. And so every single person I've helped do this goes through this same problem. Now you can update the resolution in the VM, which we can try now, or you can try to get through the installation, which kind of fixes it just by hitting enter and stuff. But let's try to since we have time, let's go ahead and try to update the resolution. So we're going to go into, which one should we do? Adjust window size. Is that going to do it? I don't know. I have never been able to reliably get this to work. It's one of the reasons this is not a problem on VMware at all, by the way. This is a VirtualBox issue. So we're going to go try to change the, well, I don't know. We can try them all. Let's try them all. Full screen mode. When you do this, it'll warn you. It'll say, are you sure you have to exit? I don't think I want to do full screen mode right now. Later, maybe. Virtual screen number 1 in the VM itself under the display settings. Are you talking about over here? Nope. Yeah, well, you can't get to the display settings in the virtual machine until it installs. That's kind of the problem, because it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation, because you can't. This is super annoying. Under activities, okay. Oh, okay. Let's go to activities. Oh, look at that. That was nice. I don't think I knew about that. All right, so here's your desktop. This is good to know. This is not obvious though. I'll just tell you. So there's your select button. So let's see if we can go find resolution. Let's do that. Settings, resolution, displays. Let's change it to, I don't know, what should we change it to? 1920 by 1060. Apply. Is that going to break anything? I haven't done this before, so we'll see. I think it's kind of early in the process. That's one of the reasons the OSI model. Oh yeah. So, whoa. Yes. Okay, that was nice. Holy cow. That was pretty cool. So I can't see you guys, but so be it. Close this. Hey, now I can do the rest. Yay. All right, so I'm going to have to do this without seeing you guys, but it's pretty straightforward. And I can say how impressed I am with Pop! OS. I mean, this is a fantastic first Linux experience. And it's not just this kiddie Linux, too. It's actually, they take into account a lot of engineering needs, machine learning engineers and others. So I'm super impressed with System 76 for what they did here. Almost enough to forgive them for the horrible customer experience service I had with them in 2013. It was a disaster. But I think the company's probably grown a lot since then. So I'm going to use the default keyboard for right now. I'm going to clean erase. Now, every time somebody comes here, you should probably pause. Remember, this isn't deleting your computer. It's deleting everything in your virtual machine. So in this case, I can do a total clean install. And so AT&T VBox hard drive. So it says DevSDA. Normally, if I saw DevSDA, I would be paranoid and terrified because I don't want to blow away my disk, which I've done. So I'm going to click on that and go erase and install. It's okay. Why? Because it's a virtual machine. And again, this is not the actual operating system. This is the installer that's going to install the operating system. And it says, do you want encryption? This is a virtual machine, so I'm not as inclined to want to do encryption, mostly because I'm just going to be firing it up for different purposes. But if you want it, you should do it. If you're installing on bare hardware, which is the same exact process, it's just without the virtual machine, then you definitely probably want to encrypt that. Definitely probably. But I'm not going to in this case. So it's going to partition hard drives. This is the magic. If you have anybody who knows Arch knows how hard it is to do all these steps, partitioning, understanding what's going on. And frankly, these easy Linux distributions that have been out for a while, starting with Mint and Ubuntu and stuff, they've kind of made some of us veterans, us veterans out there a little bit soft. Because I haven't had to do fdisk for a very long time. And so I'm really grateful for my experience with Arch recently, because Arch is bringing back the old skills that I had to install a Linux operating system from scratch on bare metal and, or in a virtual machine, without having any of this stuff taken care of for you. And I don't mean to put down those people who are doing Pop! OS as their first Linux experience because you're not serious or something like that. But just know, if you truly want to understand Linux, and definitely if you ever want to certify, you're going to have to know how to install Linux from scratch, and I'm not from scratch, but from like Arch or something, and know what all of those, how to partition a disk, what does it mean to mount a disk. So if you want to get into the weeds on that, what are your VMs that you should be installing? Should be vanilla Arch. And I'm going to say vanilla Arch because you're going to have to do that. Maybe vanilla Debian as well if you want to practice, or vanilla SUSE or Red Hat or Fedora. This is why virtual machines are so powerful, because as well as Docker now, we know you can do this to practice. And the people I've had who have like aced their essentials no problem were the ones who installed 3, 4, 5 different Linux distros on a VM, and servers and desktops, and also on a beater laptop. So I lent them a beater laptop and just let them reinstall like 7 operating systems in the course of a week, and try how to install software on each one of them. So virtual machines are really, really valuable for learning and testing. So restart the device. So now I have to restart the device. Again, it's not my computer, it's this pretend computer, and I'm going to go ahead and restart it now. And as you can see, it's going to go back down and up. If you want to make your VM faster, you can create HDD as a VDI, fixed size, and don't use encryption. It'll be faster. Interesting. Yast was pretty dang good at the time. Yast is the SUSE installer. So I'm going to go ahead and close these warnings and just go with this. I'll tell you though, so far my experience with Pop! OS has been pretty dang good. Again, so this, you're like, well, why is it asking me all these questions again? It's asking these questions because the last time we installed Pop! OS, we booted Pop! OS, we weren't actually booting the virtual machine. We were booting the virtual machine that had that ISO listed. You see here how the optical drive is empty now? So now it's actually booting it off the hard drive, off of its hard drive. And so it's the installer ISO was just there to run. And then from that, we installed Pop! OS onto the hard drive. So this is the first time this Pop! OS virtual machine has ever run. And so we're going to probably mess with the, let's mess with the resolution again now that I know how to do it, except for I don't see it up here. I think if you push escape though, well, we'll just click next. Typing, next, privacy, location services. I don't want location services. Next. Okay, where's my time zone? Yep, that's me. So this is where people start to go off on Pop! OS and System 76. A lot of people would say they sold out by making it really easy to integrate with all the existing services, but they got a company to run, and they've decided to allow you to set up different accounts, and they've also got proprietary hard software on here, and they don't care. They just want it to work. So they're going to click on skip. They want it to be easy to use. So full name, RWX, ROB. And I don't need anything more than that. Set my password. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know. This is not important because it's just for the system. Unless you're bridged. If it's bridged, guys, remember, you're not as protected as you are with NAT. If you make it bridged, make it a good password because it's just as vulnerable as anything else on your network. Root Tor. No. Start using Prop! OS. Huzzah. So here we go. And I mean, I've been going off today. This has been such a fun day. And here we go. So we've got our activities over here, and I'm going to go change. You can actually, instead of clicking activities, you can actually also just click the Windows key, or the super key as it's called. Can I suggest, if you're a beginner, you learn the super key? Super key, you just push the super key and type, and just push enter. You don't even have to touch your mouse 9 times out of 10. So we're going to go to displays. I'm going to change my resolution back to 1910 by 2 by wait, which one should I get? Yeah, that's probably good. And I don't need a scale. Go ahead and apply that, and that's gonna. I love that VirtualBox changed its size. It didn't do that before, so I must have missed that step before. So this is cool. And now here you go. So you have this environment, and you have one of your many desktops. And this is a full-blown thing. You can actually full screen this. Let's actually do that now that we have a working one, full screen mode. It's going to warn you. This is, people get locked out all the time. It's about to change the full screen mode, and it tells you to push host F, which is super F. And so as the note that the host key is currently defined as the right control key. Okay, well, let me make note of that. Right control key is the host key. And then what? So, and then F. So if I want to get out of this, that's what I have to do. So that I can switch. So the first thing you should do after you log in and go full screen or whatever, and you should do this for any virtual machine that you install, is you should actually upgrade and update. And I actually prefer to do this from the command line. But if you don't know how to do that, you usually should be able to find how to do it through the GUI. But the command line I know is reliable. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull up a terminal, and I'm going to execute the first two commands. You should pretty much execute on anything. So we're going to do this as root sudo apt. This is a Debian system, sudo apt update, and that's going to ask for, it's going to update all of the places where it gets all of its updates. The reason you need to do this right away is because and then the next command is apt upgrade, and you really shouldn't do anything else until you do this, because most of these ISO images, the thing you downloaded, they are not up to date. They are the last, sort of snapshot of the installation process. Look at all the stuff that has to be updated, and they are waiting to be updated. So the first thing you should do, and this is particularly important if you're on hardware where your Wi-Fi is not working or something like that. In fact, a lot of times I found with Mint anyway, that I had to go through this upgrade process in order to get my Wi-Fi to work. So I had to either use an extra Wi-Fi dongle from Mechanikit that I knew worked. This is a conversation for tomorrow, but and then I would have to connect it to the Ethernet using a cable to make sure. This is going to take a long time. This is a full operating system upgrade, and you're doing it from the command line. And let me just say that after the Manjaro experience in particular, where it bricked multiple systems in my lab because people were clicking on the upgrade links over here, don't do your upgrades and stuff from the command line. I don't care if there's a little pretty icon down there for you to click on. 9 times out of 10, it's better for you to do all of this upgrading from a terminal. And even better from a pseudo terminal, which we won't talk about yet. We'll talk about it later. But a pseudo terminal is, if you type, it's hard for me to do on my computer. It's function control option like F2